Hey everyone, how we doing? Oh, well, that's a problem. Hold, please. Let's try that again. Hi everyone. How's life going? I'm sorry that people are not feeling well. I hope everyone who's not feeling well starts to feel better. I am your friendly neighborhood Prax. Welcome to the channel. It is Saturday night, and I am here chilling with y'all as we talk about books. Books that I read over the week, books that I'm interested in, different book things that have come up and, maybe are intriguing or just make me sigh and go, the younglings know nothing again, or they just don't pay attention to history. Either one of those two things are possible. So, we're going to start today with a mini rant, because it is an important rant, and I feel it is my job as both a former teacher and just an adult in the room to help people be better. I do not care why you go to the library. If you want to go to the library and take advantage of that free Wi-Fi and watch all your stories, go right ahead. You want to take advantage of going out into public and, reading the free papers and being part of the coffee crew that is literally there at 7 o'clock in the morning every single day, and it's the same old dudes who sit in the same 4 chairs and read through the paper cover to cover. Good for you. Go solo. Don't have that problem. I do, however, have a problem if you are in the library watching whatever it is you're watching on your device, on your tablet, without a fucking headset. This is 2024, people. It's 2024. Put your earphones in. And don't come at me and say, oh, but I have hearing aids and I can't wear earphones. No. Hearing aids are all Bluetooth capable now. They will all sync to your device. Nobody wants to listen to you listen to you watch Bridgerton or hear you watch Bridgerton in the library on a Saturday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, loud enough that I can hear you 6 stacks away. Like, that just... Where's the common courtesy, people? I understand common courtesy is neither common nor really courteous frequently, but why? Just why? It's really not that hard. And if you're like, oh, well, I forgot my headset today, then don't watch it. Or go to the dollar store around the corner. I guarantee you they have a cheap set of headphones that they can sell you. Yeah, exactly. Or a study room. There are study rooms all over. Like, this is the downtown library for the entire town. It is not for nothing. Also, not gonna judge what you watch, but maybe watching Bridgerton in the public, in the downstairs main floor reading section right outside the children's section at story time might not be the best time. Just saying. Just maybe, time and place, just a little. Like, again, don't get me wrong. You want to watch Bridgerton? Good for you. I personally am not a big fan of that series. The characters weren't for me. I haven't been a big fan of the books, but I understand how it's a lot of people's favorite. They get really into it, whatever. Madam, can we talk about time and place? It is 2024. You can sync your phone to whatever headset you want. And most new phones come with freaking earbuds of some sort. Don't make everybody else have to listen along with you. That's just... Sorry. Okay, rant over. Let's talk about things I actually enjoyed this week. Books. Because I like books. I also like going to the library and reading books in the library. Or, poking around and seeing what's interesting in the library that I may not have seen otherwise, or the library may have gotten that maybe I've never heard of in a bookstore because, of marketing, whatever. But We're going to talk about books that I read this week, books that I'm interested in, different things, new books that I got today that I'm excited for, and, you know, different stuff like that. There we go. That's been bothering me. So. Also stories. I should also mention that this is probably going to talk about spoilers. Well, no, we're going to talk about talk things about without spoilers, because I've decided that I'm not. If it's a series, I'm not going to have a spoiler discussion, review, reading check-in, whatever, until I finish the series, because I feel like that's more appropriate. I feel like that's a better kind of way of going. So, first things up, I read book 2 of the Greenbones saga this week. Again, got it from the library. Yay, libraries. Jade War. I am still enjoying the plot. The magic system is very unique. I like how it works. I like that it really kind of is this very particular genetics-based magic system, and that ties into a lot of how this functions. I really like the vibe. Again, it feels like a 1970s, 1980s Hong Kong triad movie. I am struggling to find a character I like to root for. Let me put it that way. Like, there are characters I can read a book and go, oh, you are not a good person, but I still think you're a well-written character, and I want to root for you. Or, you're the hero and I will root for you because you are total perfect. Like, I can find any of that. And I can read books where the main characters are not necessarily good people and still want to root for them. I am struggling with that in this book series. And I mean, like, I kind of know why. These are all very, quote, morally gray characters, but in the actual definition of the term morally gray, and they're very much, they're a crime family, y'all. This is The Godfather, and this is what I think the problem is. Yes, this is a 70s, 80s Hong Kong triad feel book that's also trying to do the Godfather book feel throughout generation. And I don't feel like because anytime I get close to feeling like, yeah, I can not sympathize, but empathize with these characters, right? Like, that's an important distinction, right? Like, empathize is I understand how you feel, but I may not agree with it. Like, I feel your feelings, I experience, you know, I can empathize where you got from this, but I don't necessarily have to agree with your position or how you got there. I do think that one of the biggest problems with this, for me, right, like, this is just a for me kind of problem, is that every time I get to a character that I want to feel like that you want to be like, no, you know better, come back, just step back, just step back a little bit, like, every time you get to one of those characters where you want to be rooting for them because they think that they're trying to do better and that they know that there's something wrong with them and that they're trying, but they're still, you know, that moment, the only good part of Godfather 3 where he goes, every time, you know, they pull me back in, right? Like, there's no Michael in this book for me. There's no character for me, and that just might be, and it's probably just a me thing. Like, this is beautifully written, fabulously designed. The pacing is great. I feel that the story is very interesting. The plot is great. But for me, I'm not getting that character that is the focus that I want to be like, no, no, no. You know this is a bad idea. Come back. Let me... Oh, you're gonna make that choice. Okay. Oh, and you made that choice anyways. But, like, these characters, I'm like... You're making a bad... You're not intelligently making a bad choice. You're just making a bad choice. Is what I feel like. Sometimes. And... I will definitely read the rest of this. It's very good. It's very gripping. I don't know. Like, there are moments where the characters are very tender towards individuals. Great. But it doesn't seem like those moments are... There's scenes where you're supposed to be able to see, oh, this character has very tender moments and very, very connected softness. And that's why you should root for them. But you don't see that character moment. At least I don't feel that those tender moments are actually like the underlying character that they may have put this level of criminal enterprise mob boss on top of. Rather, those are like moments that they willingly choose to have to further facilitate, or that are supposed to be there, at least in my opinion and the way it felt to me, really felt like, oh, by the way, let me show you that this character actually is a good person. It's not going to actually impact any of the plot. You're really not going to feel like it does impact the plot. That's not the right thing to say. You feel that is an anomaly, not an underlying trait that they then had to put over an overcoat of brutality or moral flexibility. Rather, it is, oh, I'm just choosing to be this soft moment because I'm choosing it, which is positive, which is great, and it can work really, really well. And I can see where a lot of people really enjoy that and can see that as kind of like a willing understanding of those characters. I just personally am struggling to connect with them. And, like, every time I start to connect with with one of those characters, it just doesn't. It's like, oh, no, okay. And so, but that's just, again, there is nothing wrong with this book. This book is very good. I encourage people to read this book and this series and feel this. It is a case of, for me, I am struggling to connect with these characters. And that is a me, not the book, not a bad not something that I would say, don't read this book, not a, oh my god, I hated this. This is a point where I am just not connecting with that character. Which isn't a bad thing. Well, I guess it's a bad thing because for me it's a struggle sometimes to read the book, and struggle, I mean, like, I'm like reading it in bits and pieces because I'm going back for the plot and not for the characters. Which is great and fine. I'm liking the plot. But there might be other people who are like, no, I really enjoy these characters and this world really does it for me, and I really like all of these particular characters. I think they're really cool and they're really unique and all of that. Okay. We can have different tastes, and I can look at that person and say, okay, I can understand you, I can respect you, your opinion is still entirely appropriate, and I'm not like, did we read the same book? Because I have been in places where I've been like that, like, where I'm like, what? And this is just literally a case of my my connection to this book is a me problem, not the book's problem. So yeah, that's my summary of Jade War. Very good. We'll read book 3, which is... Ooh, what is book 3? Jade Legacy. Jade Legacy is book 3. I will read Jade Legacy, and then probably for next week, and then I will give a spoiler-filled review of all 3. Because that way I will have a like a complete look at this story and be able to be like, okay, where do I fall in the end of all of these characters? So yes, very good. For me, it was a case of I'm not connecting with some of these characters, but the plot is great, the vibes are great. It really does feel like reading a 1970s, 1980s Hong Kong triad movie, you know. Very good. 10 out, I don't like rating books. I don't really write books. I understand why rating books is good, because editors and publishers use that as a means to justify writing book contracts, but it still pisses me off, and I don't like doing it because I think it's inaccurate and it's entirely arbitrary. And if people's publishing contracts rely on getting really high average ratings, then you skew the rating system inherently. Next up, a continuing read. This is book 3 of the Fey Realm series by Catherine Reynolds. I've been really loving these. We are well into, like, this. When I finish this series, I will have so much spoilers to be writing about this. Like this book, there are characters in this book that I don't always connect with, but there are other characters that are in this book that I really connect with. Marsilia and Fjell and Arne. My boy. He's important. And you know, a couple other people in this book that are real important. Not going to spoil because some of those people are kind of really important, but we'll definitely say that this is a good continuation. Oh, I should give you the plot. Oh, I should give you the plot for Jade War. I'll go back to that in a second. So the blurb on the back, nice little fancy. Also, still loving the fact that the spine, there, we can see it, right? You can see it. Numbers on the spine. Thank you very much. Put this here. Put the spine numbers. Fonda Lee did it too. She did it at the top. Publishers. Put volume numbers on the spine of the book. Please and thank you. So, blurb on the back of this is, war has torn the dwarven lands asunder. Traitors and monsters terrorize the kingdom, and the death toll continues to mount. Fjell and Marsilia find themselves caught up in politics, even as their friends fight for their lives. Fjell contends with a stubborn king that refuses to see reason, and Marsilia finds herself put into the very position she never asked for, the power of leadership. The wild hunt has come to lay waste. The powers of undeath threaten all of the Fey realm, and it's up to Fjell, Marsilia, and their allies to ensure that Svartalhelm is not the first of the dominoes to fall. This is really now into the plot of this series as a whole. So book one is kind of an intro to the world, an intro to your characters, the beginning of the romance between Marcelia and Fiel, and but it's also like a good first book. It's a contained story, right? Like it's a contained story. They go on their adventure ends, and like there's, you know, vibes, and, you know, they've changed and grown as characters because of that story, but there isn't like an overarching world plot that they have to deal with yet. Book two introduces that overarching world plot. Hi, the Wild Hunt is coming. The Wild Hunt is coming. This series, the Wild Hunt is coming. And I love that for a variety of reasons for me. But I may have really enjoyed using them as villains in a particular game I ran. But the thing about this book series is book one is a self-contained adventure, introduces you to the world, the setting, the way in which things are going to work. The characters meet, begin to have a romance. Then there's the fun, you know, they grow as people, and they're like, okay, now we're growing, and now we'll have to deal with the politics of this fallout from this adventure. Book two introduces you to the overarching plot for the entire series, and it really does a very good job of it. This is book three. We are now well into, hi, welcome to the world-ending plot. Welcome to your emotions and a world-ending plot. I feel like these are things that should be said and stated and appreciated, and then also be like, but no. Also, shout out to the most dope of characters. What is her name? The queen of the dwarves, who has a bunch of shield maidens who you meet at the end of book two. And then, yeah, she's in this. She kicks ass in this. Some really great, really great variety of representation, variety of people. Strong recommendation. Again, this series reads like you're reading a myth or an oral tradition, or really one of the poetic Eddas, and a really good explanation for, you know, really good setting, feeling, vibe that you're kind of getting from this one. I think it will be a great, you know, I can see where the plot, you know, there are a couple pieces where I was like, okay, I see this plot, but it's also a point of like, I read a shit ton of books. And I also am experienced a large level of media literacy. I understand where there are certain plot points that are going to happen, and I am very, very into, and if it's done well, it doesn't bother me. Like, a cliche can be a good cliche. I can see a plot point coming, and I'm okay with it as long as it's done well and serves the story and works. I'm okay with that. And this is a case of the points at which the points that I feel like I predicted plot points were really points that tied very strongly into, this is a world in which we are following and using Celtic mythology, Welsh mythology, Norse mythology, and the poetic Eddas and therefore these plot points are really genre, what we would used to call you know, they're genre tropes that belong and define the genre. And Coldrake's over here calling me out, saying the entire group is behind Prax. She reads books like most folks breathe. You're not wrong. You're not wrong, but I would also like to point out that I don't breathe like most people because I'm an asthmatic and therefore breathing is very difficult for me. Books are easier than breathing. Just throwing that out there. So like the predictable points in this really are what I would consider from like a genre perspective of being a point that should be expected for the genre, if that kind of works. Like, I don't want to spoil anything. I can talk about book one. Right? Like, book one starts with Marsilia, who is a girl living in the woods as a source, low-level kind of like witch, sorceress, healer, with her adoptive father, who happens to be a puka, by the way. Love that plot point. Her dad is a puka, shapeshifter. Dope as fuck. Also, depending, I'm waiting. Hey, Kat, okay, shout out, Catherine, do we ever get Udon as a 6-foot tall purple rabbit? Invisible purple rabbit? Because if we do, that would be dope as fuck, and I would appreciate that reference. But I also understand if that doesn't happen. Coldrake got the reference. But, so like in book one of those points is she is in the woods. This is how she's living her very simple life in the woods as this very simple farmer, local healer who, doesn't take payment for being, or debts for healing anybody. It's all in trade, and, as a healer, has a healer's vows to kind of thing. And, is working with both the humans and the fey creatures in this forest, whatever. Bad thing happens. Needs to go on quest to the fey realm to get a thing to deal with the bad thing that has happened, right? Like, simple little, okay, boom, 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 plot point. Easy, kind of very generic poetic Ada myth kind of story plot points, but you expect that because of the genre, and it's not a problem. But then it's also stuff like, you're going to visit all of these places, and they're going to help you grow, and as you grow as a character, you grow in power, and then you grow in whatever, and one of the reasons I really like the relationship between Marsilia and Fjell. Hi, by the way, Fjell is this character on the cover. Redhead. He a dwarf. He a 6'8" dwarf, but he a dwarf. Also, loving the story point that the reason dwarves are all described as little people in the Poetic Eddas and in human myth is the same reason that witches are described as hunchback with spotted noses or warts on their nose and all of that stuff. It's to undermine their power, and I'm like, I'm here for it. Here to support this. I am here for it. And so in this series, I know going in that there are going to be certain points that I'm like, okay, this is this point, and this is this point, and we are here, and I want to see how this author is going to describe or deal with this particular plot point that I know is coming because I, A, read a lot, B, have culture, media literacy out the yazoo, so I understand that these are plot stories, and I also understand how this story functions within its own genre. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing, right? Like, I am looking forward to how those plot develop, and then at the same time, I'm also looking forward to, like, the side story with my gay elves. Look, book talk can have all this thing about enemies to lovers and all of this stuff, and I'm like, it's not, you aren't actually writing enemies to lovers, you're writing vaguely dissatisfied and or possibly inconvenienced to fuck buddies to lovers, versus, I should put the spoiler tag up. I'm putting the spoiler tag up. Spoiler tag is up. Versus my two elves who are members of my two gay elves who are spies and leaders of armies. One serves the winter court and one serves the summer court, and have literally killed each other multiple times. Like, that is enemies to lovers. Like, this is enemies to lovers. And if you don't know why having the winter court and the summer court elves literally that's a much more complicated relationship that needs to be worked through than a lot of other things. And so, like, that's the stuff that I'm really enjoying. I think the book is really well written. I think you can still, Catherine Reynolds' Fey Realm series, you can still get the series for free if you have Kindle Unlimited. I'm buying the physical copies just because I read physical copies a lot easier than digital copies. And I also kind of like supporting independent authors. And I understand that, like, authors get a cut of Kindle Unlimited, but it's not the same. It's not the same. So, yeah. I am really enjoying this series. I will be ordering book 4 and probably 5, because there are only 2 books left, right? There are 2 books left of this series? I think there are only 2 books left. Yeah. The Queen's Shadows and Horns of the Hunt are the last 2 books in this series. I'm going to be ordering them tomorrow. I'm going to read book 4 for next week and book 5 for the following week, and then I will do a full spoiler-heavy discussion of, all that kind of stuff. I am here for it. Yeah, exactly. Like, the way in which stories get changed and twisted and retold is always great and always kind of interesting. And as much problems as I have with the reductionist viewpoint of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, he was not entirely wrong with looking at a spread of literature and going, these points are reconnected. I think his analysis was a little wrong. I think there's been a lot of research since that is really kind of helpful, but Joseph Campbell did not start from a place of malice. He didn't start from a place of discrediting other writers or voices. He wanted to find commonalities across things, which I think is good, but I think all of the research that came after him does a lot to kind of bring his core premise of the hero's journey into the 21st century. Yeah, so, you know, there's lots of little things like that. So definitely going to check out the rest of the Fey Realm series. And I recommend other people do. Also, again, shout out to well, I'm going to shout out Catherine because she's the author of Cozy Catherine is the author. Really good series, really good. She doesn't do a lot of streaming herself, but she does stream mod for her husband, Zero. I know you. We figured this out last time. Well, I'm glad my recommendations have been good. Oh, there we go. Oh, poop. I hate the I hate the fact that this shout out has a... Okay. I hate the fact that Twitch's shout out thing has a timer of 3 minutes, or 2 minutes, whatever it is. Yeah. Yeah, so like the one that's / shout out that gives you a little pop-up in your in your viewer chat on Twitch, that has a timer for 2 minutes, and you're like, I can't figure out how to turn that off so that I can do more shout outs, which I think is like always a problem. Or I can use the Streamlabs one and do it this way, and then you have to click it yourself. But Zero did the beautiful overlays. Thank you again, Zero. Really appreciate you. So. Scrolling back through the chat, because again, Coldrake comes in with the announcement, 60 minutes of the audiobook for #1 of Dangerous Assassin, read by the author Elizabeth Wheatley. How are you liking that, Coldrake? I feel like I should ask, because I really loved Dangerous Assassin. As duly noted by the fact that I got the book, and 15 minutes in, then promptly went and bought the next 3 that came today, by the way. So I haven't read these yet, because these literally came today. Dangerous Outlaw, Dangerous Traitor, and then Dangerous Sorceress, followed by the last book in the series, which was just released, and therefore I will need to order book 5, which is the conclusion to the series, which is Dangerous Empress. And I am very much here for it. Oh, I meant the plot, not the audiobook itself. What are you thinking of the plot of Dangerous Assassin? Speaking of, who did the audiobook? There are like 3 different versions you could get. Please excuse me. The dog is barking very vehemently, which means that she probably has to go out, and I think she takes priority. So I will leave you. I will leave you to discuss book one, Dangerous Assassin, because Coldrake has opinions, and then I will be right back, everybody. everyone. So I feel like I should let you in on the ongoing drama that my dog, who is 16 by the way, she's a very old lady. She is 16 and a mix of lab and red tick hound, okay? And probably some fox in there too. She's an old kind of mutt dog. Love her dearly. We have a sliding glass door in the kitchen that goes out onto a back patio. Really nice, right? And this one fox knows that the glass door is there, knows that the dog cannot go through, and will sit right in the middle of the patio and taunt the dog and be like, can't catch me, can't catch me. And my red tick hound lab dog is like, if this glass wasn't here, motherfucker, I would totally rip your throat out. Like, just to piss the dog off. And then I'm also like, Bella, you're 16. Like, I know you could totally take this fox, but maybe, don't try. Hi, everyone. And then Bella gives me this look like, aren't you just going to open the door so I can go get it? I'm like, no, I'm not going to open the door. I'm just going to turn the light on and then the fox will run away. But like, honest to God, it's the drama, it's hilarity, but we are talking about books, and specifically Dangerous Assassin. Have a good one, Hawkeye. Hope you feel better. Hope everybody in your family is feeling better. Pastina and, you know, all the good chicken soup for your soul kind of stuff. So, do I have book one handy? I do not have book one handy. But Dangerous Assassin by Elizabeth Wheatley is a series that I read book one, really enjoyed it, then promptly went and bought the next three. Volume 5 is going to be coming out in a minute. And, you know, at the end of this week, I guess. I'm looking forward to all of this. I've really, so far, enjoyed both the writing style and the premise. These are romantic fantasy that I can get behind. It's not really it's a really good plot where the romance is part of the plot, like a romance novel, but it is a really good, also fantasy-driven book. Coldrake, I don't think the last 60 minutes will leave you disappointed. Like, the end of book one has some major points where you're like, yep. Okay, I am not giving you any spoilers, but I'm like, when I got the end of book one, I was like, crap. I mean, I'm glad I ordered the next 3 when I got to page 39 of book one. And, oh, Coldrake, you will, I'm not going to give that spoiler, although I kind of will, because Elizabeth Wheatley is very upfront about the fact that people are like, oh, is there spice in your books? Because that's a big thing on Book Talk. Like, everybody wants these quote-unquote spicy books. I'm like, sure, whatever. You want to read romance novels? Go right ahead. If you want to read erotica, go right ahead. You do you. But they're like, it has to be a spicy book, or it has to be a non-spicy book. And, like, apparently the two sides of Bookstagram and Book Talk shall never meet. I'm like, I'll read whatever as long as it's well written. Like, it has serve a plot, please. If we're using, like, a Chinese restaurant chili scale, which Elizabeth Wheatley is like a video on her Instagram about this, is like, book one could possibly be considered no spice. And then, like, the spiciest it gets at the end of like book 4, I guess, is 2 chili peppers. Whatever. Coldrake, I'm not gonna the spice is an issue, is not a thing, but I'm not gonna give you any spoilers about the plot. I'm just gonna say you will have. I would love when we get back next week, because I guarantee you'll probably be done by the end of next week. When you get to the end of next week and you have feelings and emotions about the end of book 1, just know there are 3 more books in this series to get to you. Exactly. So it's like cooking in a slow cook. Yeah, and serving the plot, right? Like, I am not young. I am very much not young this year. Oh yeah, you'll be done by tonight. That's fair. You can post in Troopers Discord when you finish, because I will be hilarious to see what you think. Or you can even comment on YouTube when this goes up on YouTube what you think about the end of Dangerous Assassin and feelings or emotions. If you've read any of that, feel free to leave comments at the bottom of the video, because I think they're great. Also, they help the authors. But I am not young. I have read many a romance novel. I have read many 1980s Harlequin romance novel. I have one of the games that I ran that you can find on Simon's channel, which is the Black Flag series that I ran, which is a pirate game. That series ended up with me ordering 3? 4. 3. Well, 2, and got 2 different versions of 1. Romance cover drawings of characters' ships from that TTRPG. Like, full-on bodice ripper. Oh, I shall just show you. I will just show you, because it is, you need to understand what these are, and this artist did such a good job with them that it is... Hi, this is going to be a thing now. Pause while we look at some... That's not going to help. Can I not? Why did that not work? Okay. Let's try this. Let's try this. Okay, let's try this. Okay. Let's try this. No. That's not gonna be okay. Let's do it this way. There's more than one way to do this. So this is the romance cover commission that I did commission for 2 characters. Why won't it let me rescale it? Come on. Okay, it won't let me do this. Alright, it won't let me do this. Poopies. Poopies. Won't let me do this. Anyways, I will post them on YouTube again. Yes, it is literally... So, 2 of the characters... what? So for the fact that this commission series, I'm trying to figure out how to just. There has to be a way. Hold on. There has to be a way. Let me just see if I can do this. Why won't it let me scale fit to screen? There we go. There we go. I can do this, y'all. I have technology. I have skills. I can... We're doing this live, everybody. Doop. Hi. Not that. Not that. Capture. Lock that. Lock that. Which means when I grab this. There we go. I can... There we are. So these were actual romances from player characters, and one is a player and an NPC, and one is two player characters from this game. And we were like, we need 1980s romance style covers for these characters, and this is what we commissioned for this game. This was a thing. So the one on the left is Kareen and literally her demon, who has... Kareen is a witch, and this is her demon, who is literally seducing her into ending the world. Hi. Can you guess who played... I will give you 30 seconds to guess who played that character. I will just let you put your guesses in chat as who played Kareen. But yeah, like full-on soft focus background. Love the dress, this bright red, you know, gorgeous dress, this pose, you know, like hand-holding pose, like romance novel cover that is sensual and in depth, and there is a difference between a 1980s, early 90s romance cover that's very much for the woman, female gaze, and all of these things. Exactly. Coldrake's like talking about Fabio, and Bonus ready to fail OSHA standards. Point to you, Coldrake. Point to you. And then the other one is played by two other player characters. The swashbuckling... well, they're both pirates. Technically, they're both on the crew, so they're both pirates. But one is the swashbuckling, debonair, dandy, and the other is the sweet, innocent honey child who can kill you with a brick. Brick to the head. And I will tell you who the players were in a minute. But these are, so yes, when I say I have read and I know a lot about romance, I am of an age. I understand romance novels. I understand how they've developed. I'm not really a big fan of this modern trend in romance novels to have this very cartoonish style, or just have like words on the cover. Like, give me emotion. Even if it's a historically inaccurate address, give me emotion on the cover. So, this is Josie and Nathaniel, and then the other one is Kareen and her demon. For those playing along at home, Kareen was played by Lynn, Gremlin Art. Josie was played by Lindy, from Laugh Love Lindy. And Nathaniel was played by Simon, from Wandering DM. So much pirating. So much pirating. I'm just saying, there was a lot of piracy going on on that game. Also romance and beautiful, beautiful stories. But again, I understand romance novels. I understand how they function. I understand the genre and what you're supposed to eventually get to. How this all ends up. So when I say that Dangerous Assassin is what I consider a very good example of the romantasy genre, which I guess has now become its own genre, in the point that the romance is a major portion of the plot, but it also has a plot and has a fantasy element in it that is also not ignored and serves the plot. That's an important thing to say. Hey, Lysander, welcome in. And one of the things that comes out of this is, I think that Dangerous Assassin is really good. As I talked about last week, I think that Volume 1 was really good because they really are enemies to lovers. Like, this is an actual enemies to lovers. They get married first for political reasons. He is the crown prince of this empire, and she is the son of one of the vassal kingdoms, or the daughter of one of these vassal kingdoms. Oh wait, and her mother was one of these sorceresses who was the last bastion of rebellion against this conquering emperor, and may, more than likely, probably did curse the emperor, and through the emperor, the crown prince. And she's got and is living under her own curse. So they actively have a lot of reasons why they should hate each other. But they also have political reasons why they have to get married and work together to fix their problems. And from that comes an actual real emotions, and I feel that their growth as characters is really, really good. Now, Coldrake is sitting over here saying at times he felt like he just wanted to bash their heads in. Yeah, you kind of do. But it's a romance. But some of that is also like the romance genre. And it never felt like... One of the things that really bothers me about the romance genre is pointless conflict that would go away in 30 seconds if people just talk to each other. That isn't really a conflict. That isn't really like a problem. It is just an inconvenience. The conflicts that are interpersonal between Dangerous and Amira, who is the female main character in that series, communication would definitely improve their situation, but the conflicts that are underlying their situation are such that communication is not that easy as just the two of them sitting in a room and talking this out, because there are other outside forces that are preventing that communication from happening. And there is actually other situations where communication isn't just going to fix everything. Coldrake says, I can understand why they were like two magnets of the same polarity. Circumstances forced them into their predicaments. But yeah, the walls have ears. Like, there are literal reasons. Or eyes or some other appendages. Look, it's a fantasy novel. I'm not ruling it out. And there are legitimate reasons why just pure communication wouldn't have solved their problems. Yes, Lysander, I am very much of the... If your problem is merely an inconvenience that you could resolve in 15 seconds of being like, hey babe, did I just see, what you doing tonight? Are you going to be free? Oh, you're hanging out with who? Okay. See you Thursday. Like, if that is the level of conflict that can be resolved, then I'm not going to finish it. But if you have like an actual conflict or like an actual reason why miscommunication is going to occur, and not just be have an actual issue, then I'm okay with it. Yeah, exactly. And then on the flip side, there are those that you're like, well, why don't they just trauma dump all over each other? I'm like, but they've literally just met. They, I don't like. I know that some people are like that, are into just trauma dumping their shit. I'm not. I know a lot of people aren't. So whatever. Like, there's a lot of reasons. Well, one of the book series, one of the things that I mentioned did it really well, where the communication was an actual struggle for actual reasons, and like there were plot reasons why the failure to communicate continued. And now I'm just trying to. No, Phoenix King. Phoenix King. And, like, exactly. Communication is hard in real life. I understand this. But if it is not, like, and that's like base level communication. And that's one of the reasons why the romance genre can have a lot of issues and have these, like, problems. But both the Fey Realm series and the the first volume, I haven't read the rest because I literally just got them today. And by today, I mean when I got home from work at 4:30. So, haven't read these yet. The romance genre can have a lot of problems with that, but if it's well written and like the characters are sitting there going, okay, like there's an actual impediment to communication. And with Dangerous and Amira, there's an actual impediment to communication in a way that it's not just a misunderstanding. Like, there's actual plot development that isn't a misunderstanding that can be a problem. And it worked really, really well. Side note, no, I'll hold on to that. I'll hold on to that till the end because that's not going to be a book, and that's an entirely different media, and we'll get into that entirely different media. Oh, I know what I was talking about. I remember what I was thinking. So, for those of you who watch me on Simon Wandering DM channel, on Monday nights for Montreal by Night, yeah, it is, I mentioned this before, did I not put the right one? Hold on, did I not put the right? Oh no, I didn't. Hold on. That was the wrong shout out, because I'm such a pro streamer, everybody. There we go. That should be the right one. So, Vampire the Masquerade, Montreal by Night. One of the things I mentioned is, like, what I love is Trooper's character, Dixon, or Lucky, depending on plot reasons why he plays a character with multiple names, and my character, Flory, are having, like, actual communication problems and actual fundamental miscommunications that are causing tension and drama that isn't just a 5 seconds, oh, I took your phone number down wrong. I saw you walk down the street and I judged something. Like, their miscommunication is at a fundamental level that every time they try and fix their communication, they can't, and it gets worse because they just can't have their level of base understanding of what each other knows is entirely flawed at a level that is causing it become worse and worse, which is how actual miscommunication trope works. And I love that. And I hate, but I had mentioned previously that this miscommunication trope in modern contemporary romance, where this isn't a miscommunication. This is, girl, check your phone. He did text you. It just didn't go through yet. That's all a thing. So yes, I'm really enjoying Dangerous Assassin by Elizabeth Wheatley. I'm definitely going to finish the rest of the series, as I ordered it today, and it came today. I really also, again, I'm appreciating supporting indie published, self-published authors, giving them a lot of love and respect, because they do a lot of work, and they do a lot of their own work, and they do a lot of this other stuff. And then, so those were books that I had mentioned that I was going to read. I didn't get around to the next Dangerous book because I didn't come until today, so I did read the Fey Realm series, and I did read Fondalee's Jade War, which is book 2 in the Green Bone Saga. And I mentioned that I was going to go, last week, I was going to go to the library and see what else I could find. And then I was like, oh, it's February. And I feel like highlighting authors of speculative fiction who are Black. And you should do POC authors and oh hi, it's an entire week of women's authors, and you do that all the time, and I try and do that all the time. Just highlight really good authors of color, gender presentations, all of the things, diversify your reading. And I was like, but it is also Black History Month, so I want to take the opportunity to highlight some particular Black authors that I really do enjoy, and maybe I haven't read all of their oeuvre yet. And so I was like, N.K. Jemisin. Is there an N.K. Jemisin that I have not read yet? This is the Dreamblood duology. The Killing Moon is book 1, and then book 2 is The Shadowed Sun. Coldrake, I will give you the quick TLDR on Jade War before I dive back into talking about N.K. Jemisin's Dreamblood. Jade War still feels like a 1970s, 1980s Hong Kong triad movie. I'm liking the plot. I like the world building. I like the writing style. I am struggling to connect with individual characters, and that makes it a little bit harder for me to read. I am going to finish the trilogy, but I think it's a me book. It's a me problem, not the book's problem. And other people could really, really connect to these characters, and I can understand that. But they weren't for me. So there's that. Killing Moon, N.K. Jemisin. N.K. Jemisin is a brilliant woman. Okay, so there's a couple things we need to talk about N.K. Jemisin. Number 1, she is a Black woman writing in the speculative fiction space, both sci-fi and fantasy. And her latest duology, which I looked at but decided I wasn't really in the mood to read, is also Eldritch Horror science urban fantasy. So she does a lot of really good stuff. She's also lives in New York. She is a badass New York Black woman, and I love all of her books that I have read so far. Yes, Coldrake, I agree. I can appreciate the expansive world background. I just need to have one character that I can not necessarily root for, but connect with. And, like, I'm struggling with that with the Jade War series. This book, however, I did not have that problem. I fell in love with this main character in the first page. Hiru is... such an interesting character. I have read all of the Inheritance trilogy. I read, what is the other one? Hold please while I look up. N.K. Jemisin. What? Here we go. Gonna pull up her. Pull up her. There we go. Pull up her webpage. This is, I'm not going to sign up for the newsletter. So loving this. The books. Okay, so the Broken Earth trilogy I've read. Yeah, so I read the Broken Earth and I read the Inheritance trilogy. This is the Dream Blood, which is one I hadn't read yet. So N.K. Jemisin is a really, really great and most important thing you need to know about N.K. Jemisin is, besides being a really great writer, in my opinion, and a really great woman's fabulous author, she is the first person to have, what is it? I think it's 4 years of Hugo wins in a row. Like, she won a Hugo in 2015, in 2016, and 2017. Then she goes on to win a Hugo in, you know, she's won she had books win Hugo and Nebula Awards, and she's won a Hugo Award for, not the Inheritance, but or the Dream Blood, but the Broken Earth trilogy, all of the books in the Broken Earth trilogy won the Hugo. She should have won for The Great Cities. The City We Became should have won a great, I'm sorry, that, I have problems with the Hugos, but, she's literally the first person who won 4 straight Hugo Awards on 4 straight books. Like, just Nnedi Okorafor is another brilliant black woman who writes science fiction, Afrofuturism. No, Afro-American futurism. She doesn't write. She's very interesting. Go look her up on Twitter. She has some really great explanations of like what she particularly writes. But N.K. Jemisin is a different kind of writer, with a different kind of style. Personally, I love her books. Read the Inheritance trilogy, went through that in just like a week when it first came out. And the Broken Earth trilogy, you can now get the Broken Earth trilogy in a single volume and be like, hi, let me use this as a weapon. So the books, let's go with the Broken Earth. Let's show off the covers. So this is the 5th season, which is the volume 1 of the Broken Earth. 5th season, Obelisk Gate, then Stone Sky. Then what I'm reading right now is the Dream Blood duology, and the first book is, oh, it has them in omnibus, but the first book is The Killing Moon, and then Shadowed Sun. So, really, really enjoyed this series. Really, really enjoyed book 1. So, in this book, in the ancient city-state of Gujahara, peace is the only law. Upon its rooftops and among the shadows of its cobbled streets wait the gatherers, the keepers of this peace. Their duty is to harvest the magic of the sleeping mind and use it to heal, soothe, and kill those judged corrupt. But when a conspiracy blooms within Guajahira's great temple, Ihiru, the most famous of the city's gatherers, must question everything he knows. Someone or something is stalking its prey, both in Guajira's alleys and the realms of dreams. Ihiru must now protect the woman he was sent to kill, or watch the city be devoured by war and forbidden magic. It is so well written, so well done. I love N.K. Jemisin's writing and the way she describes things is absolutely great, and a brilliant emotion, evocative of emotion, right? So, in the dark of waking, a soul has died. Its flesh, however, is still hungrily, savagely alive. The Reaper's task is not to save. The barbarians of the north taught their children to fear the dreaming moon, claiming that it brought madness. This was a forgivable blasphemy. On some nights, the moon's strange light bathed all Guajira in oily swirls of amethyst and aquamarine. It could make low-caste hovels seem sturdy and fine. Pathways of plain clay brick gleamed as if silvered. Within the moonlight's strange shadows, a man might crouch on the shadowed ledge of a building and be only a faint etching against the marbled gray. In this land, such a man would be a priest and depend upon the most sacred of his duties. That's the end of page 1. Like, this book, such a good book. And it's interesting because there's been a lot of talk recently of the trend in recent years, particularly I've seen it a lot in YA fantasy, and but it has been kind of growing in general fantasy, of not having either a trilogy or a 5-part series, but rather a duology, which is interesting because a lot of people talk about that it's very difficult to write a duology well, because is this actually 2 separate books that should be separated and published independently, or is it just one big book that has one overarching story that you just kind of randomly and arbitrarily cut in half? This, I felt, came to a logical conclusion for book 1. I don't know where it's gonna, like, I kind of can guess where things are gonna have to go for book 2, but I don't know where you're gonna pick up, so this felt like a complete story that led into book 2, right? Like, that's my thing, is if it is a multi-part volume, a cliffhanger is okay. However, a cliffhanger is not your entire frickin', climax. You need to have a little bit of satisfaction in this book before I'm going to read the second book. All of those kind of things. Personally, I think, because I love N.K. Jemisin and I think she's a brilliant writer, I also think that this was a very, very well done writing and editing. Like, the point at which you end book 1 does not feel like it's just an arbitrary, I took this bigger book and divided it in half based on page number, but rather right where the story had its own mini conclusion of this particular point of the story, right? Like, this is a concluding point that will lead into the next bigger point of the rest of the story. But it didn't feel like, that it was just an ending either. Yes, Crit Twitch asks, so it's a duology, just a 2-book series? Like, I'm trying to figure out what it is, and that's what I'm getting from the internet. Yes, a duology is literally just a series that is 2 books. Duo meaning 2, ology, which is silly because ology means the study of. And if I wanted to break this down, I'd be like, why? Oh, because you've used the word trilogy, which isn't actually from the same root stem, but you're going to combine 2 different stems and therefore force this to be the same thing. It's a thing. It's like putting copter on the end of things and being like, it's like helicopter. I'm like, no. Wrong etymology, but fine. Exactly. So it's a very, very tricky kind of challenge to split this into 2 pieces that aren't just arbitrarily divided in half and kind of can have their own cohesive whole, each individually be a cohesive whole, but tell a complex story. And there's a lot of in that. I've seen it a lot recently with YA fantasy and YA, particularly YA fantasy by, well, just by more interesting authors. Technically Daughter of the Moon Goddess and its sequel, what is the sequel? The sequel is Heart of the Sun Warrior, is a duology. And there are a couple other, really, interestingly enough, I've seen it most frequently with a lot of Asian fantasy, particularly East Asian fantasy authors, and there could be a lot of reasons for that, but it's also a trend in general in fantasy, in YA fantasy lit. As for Dreamblood, this is such an interesting premise because of how the world functions. And I'm not just talking, like, there'll be people like, oh, you're just talking about it being like a very Afrocentric perspective, and N.K. Jemisin is like, no, I write black people in fantasy worlds that are not really based on any actual culture. But because she is also, N.K. Jemisin is a, I believe, she has, like, actual cool creds, like academic cred as well, and I'm trying to remember what they are. Also, okay, hold up, we need to look at her FAQ because this is badass. Okay, so on her website she has, like, her biography broken down in as few words as possible that you could put in various things. N.K. Jemisin is a New York Times bestselling and Hugo Award-winning author and a recipient of a 2020 MacArthur Fellowship. I'm like, I love how she's got 20 words, 47 words, 151 words, extended. You know, kind of a really interesting breakdown about the fact that this book was actually written first. It was one of her first novels in 2005. It didn't sell until, or wasn't published until 2012. And 100,000 Kingdoms did really well. Fifth season, fabulous. She won 3 Hugos in a row for each volume in the series. And I love this. Jemison's most frequent themes include resistance to oppression, the inseverability of the liminal, and the coolness of stuff blowing up. All caps. She has been an advocate for the long tradition of science fiction and fantasy as political resistance, and previously championed genre as a New York Times book reviewer. She lives in Brooklyn. Badass, black woman author living in Brooklyn. And then she's got her FAQ, which, this is great. This is why I love her as a writer. Where do you get your ideas? They're delivered in the morning mail. Support the U.S. Postal Service. So you're black and a woman in science fiction. What's that about? I understand why these questions are important. It's disheartening that people keep asking them, however, or some variation of them, or some version of them. At this point, for me, these questions are a reflection on the larger problem, that for those of us who are other, we are constantly called upon to explain our existence. Therefore, I ask that interviewers stop doing it and think of something but more interesting to ask. When did you know you wanted to be a writer? Always. As a kid, I devoured books at the library, and at home, I would make my own handwritten books with cardboard covers and yarn binding. It took a while for me to decide to do it professionally, but I've been a writer for as long as I can remember. How did you become a writer? Nobody bought the ones with cardboard covers, so I had to try something new. Serious answer. I've been writing since the age of 8 or so, but only began seriously seeking publication in my late 20s and early 30s. I started with a writing workshop, Viable Paradise, and from there I joined a writing group and wrote short stories to hone my craft and novels to tell the stories I wanted to tell. I sent the stories to magazines and the books to agents. Once I found the right agent for my stuff, we then worked together for several years before the 100,000 Kingdoms sold. I kept a folder of rejections as motivation to keep going. I don't know where that folder is anymore, which feels like a good measure of success as anything else. Respect. How do you keep writing? By not writing sometimes? Diligence is very important for a writer, especially a writer on contract. However, if that's all you do, you'll absolutely burn out, and recovery time for burnout is not quick. So in order to keep writing, I travel, read, write just for fun / myself, and occasionally play Skyrim. Because she is dope. So yes. Wrong screen. Hashtag pro streamer. Yes. This is the fact that it was her first novel that she reworked and eventually sold is very interesting because it is a very interesting premise, world building, structure, and the characters are just real in a really good way. I think this, really, really recommend. 10 out of 10 will read. The other one that I recommended and that was the latest release is The City We Became, which is an interesting premise, and I have to be in the right mood for existential, kind of horror existence books. I personally think that if I'm going to read one, N.K. Jemisin is going to be a brilliant author that I would read it from, but that genre of writing and style of expression is something that I have to be in the mood for. And I don't want to judge something wrong or falsely because I wasn't in the mood for that particular style of writing. So if that's something that you're interested in reading, N.K. Jemisin's most recent series is actually books 1 and 2, and I don't they kind of seem like independent, but they're connected. It's very complicated. Is The City We Became. Great cities. Every great city has a soul. Some are as ancient as myths, and others are as new and destructive as children. New York City, she's got 6. The 5 boroughs plus the city itself. 5 New Yorkers must come together to defend their city from an ancient evil in this stunning new novel by Hugo Award winner and New York Times bestselling author N.K. Jemisin. Every city has a soul, some are as ancient as myths, and others as new and destructive as children. New York City, she's got 6. But every city also has a dark side. A roiling ancient evil stirs in the halls of power, threatening to destroy the city and her 6 newborn avatars, unless they come together and stop it once and for all. I also love this very interesting graphic design and appreciate the hell out of the fuck of what bridge they are putting on the cover of this book. And if you know, you're an actual New Yorker. And I will tell you right now, it's not the Brooklyn Bridge. So, if that's the kind of like book writing, you know, that kind of story is something that you're in the mood for, I'd look this one up. I've heard really, really great things about it. I read through like the first page in the library trying to decide whether I was going to pick up Dream Blood or The Killing Moon or The City We Became. And I liked what I read as like a writing and plot. I just decided that I was not in the mood for that particular story today, and was more in the mood for The Killing Moon, which I think says something about me. That I want to have a peaceful utopian city that keeps its peaceful utopia by, you know, having an entire priesthood of people that will murder you. That, I guess, was in where I was reading, in where I wanted to be, versus the city of New York coming to life. I felt like this is a great great work and author that we should highlight and encourage more people to read. It was kind of funny. I was in Barnes & Noble, was it last week? Yeah, last week, actually. Just randomly in Barnes & Noble killing some time. And there was this woman, it was a black woman, and the only reason I mentioned this is because she was like, oh, I've just started getting into reading, and Book Talk is kind of showing me all of these things, and like, people have really been recommending A Court of Thorns and Roses. I see it all over Instagram and TikTok and all of these things. And, you know, I was like, is there, like, what, you know, and she was talking to, like, just random people. I was like, what do you recommend? And I turned around and grabbed 5th season and went, here! This is Nora K. Jemisin. I think you will like her. And I think you will really enjoy her. And I think just because I wanted to recommend N.K. Jemisin, but it also was like, there is more than just what a very, very small minority of readers who get pushed by the algorithm on social media recommend. Do not get me wrong. If you read anything by Sarah J. Maas and she really is popular for you and you really enjoy that kind of writing, good for you, enjoy it. It's not for me. However, I also want to always encourage people to read different works and different people, and there are fabulous writing and fabulous stories out there, and there is a book out there for everyone. And then there are books out there that I try not to say that there are books that nobody should read. I have a very, very short list because I hate banning books, but I have a very, very short list of books that I think should only be read under supervision with the understanding that this is not reality and please don't make this a real thing. And that was mostly because when I was a teacher, I very much... Welcome in. Yeah, no, you do have to curate your content, but a lot of it is also not just forcing in a very particular type of content, but also an age content. And that's another thing, right? Like, we talk about the algorithm. Hi, we're going to go off on a tangent right now. We talk about the algorithm very much pushing a cis heteronormative content. Yes, but because you can also end up in a as you know, just depending on what you end up liking, how the algorithm works, you can end up on the other side in a very, very queer, very, very complicated space. Hi, by the way, I have a lot of friends on a variety of the spectrum on all sides. Welcome to the channel. I am your friendly neighborhood Prax. I talk about books on Saturdays, and then Sundays we play TTRPGs. And we also talk about TTRPGs a lot. But one of the things I, as an old, I am an old, acknowledge. Thank you for that follow. So one of the things I, as an old, acknowledge is that social media algorithms also are very much driven by, age demographics, right? And an encouragement in a large group of people who are in a similar age demographic to experience something. And if you're in a small, and this, you know, keeps getting pushed for a variety of reasons and whatever, I have no problem with a large percentage of the current population who are of the younger generation on these platforms being really into Sarah J. Maas. However, I do have a problem when these people are like, oh, look, this is the first book to ever do this. I'm like, no. Hi, let me be a kind old person and introduce you to, like, 4 other authors. Laurel K. Hamilton did not... I'm about to prove exactly how old I am. Laurel K. Hamilton did not shock the world with the first erotic polyamory, oh my god, Anita Blake, why the fuck can't you pick somebody series. Just to have the quote-unquote spicy girls on TikTok be like, ooh, why choose is a thing, and this is brand new. I'm like, no, I'm like, girl. We had Anita Blake for that. There are 15 books. Go read that. Or you could go read Sherilyn Kenyon and have, like, oh wait, fated mates and being saved through world ending. Hi, Sherilyn Kenyon. And one of the things I want to do, and particularly with a lot of these book chats, particularly now that I'm talking about books that I'm reading and things that I've come across, and encouraging indie authors and encouraging other voices and encouraging, like tonight, we were talking literally about 3 different women authors. N.K. Jemisin, who's a black woman living in Brooklyn, Fonda Lee, who is a Canadian, Asian, is Fonda Lee... Does she identify... Yeah, she identifies as Canadian American of some Asian descent, but she doesn't specify on her about which particular East Asian diaspora she identifies with. Whatever. You know, black woman, Canadian American Asian woman, indie published fantasy with Elizabeth Wheatley's Dangerous series and Catherine Reynolds' Celtic, Norse, and Welsh mythology Feyrealm series. Like, there are lots of voices I wish to encourage and I want to recognize and support and be like, hi, I don't mind if you really enjoy this thing. But your enjoyment of that thing should not deny the existence of other things. And I think one of the reasons, so for those of you who don't know, hi, welcome in. One of the things I really started this conversation, because I read a shit ton, as Coldrake in chat will tell you, or mentioned earlier today, that apparently I read like other people are breathing, which is fine, because I'm an asthmatic, and so I don't breathe like other people. That's a lot harder for me. So because I read a shit ton, I wanted to share a lot of these books. But this was like in August, or no, it was in October. It was in October. And I was in Barnes & Noble just kind of messing around. I had some time to kill. And they had an end cap put together of, if you like Fourth Wing, you should read these books. And I'm looking at this going, okay, I haven't read Fourth Wing, but I've seen it pop up and, you know, people giving reviews of it on various social media platforms. And I'm like, okay, so it's basically military school dragon riders and porn. And I'm looking at this, you know, recommended book reading. Now again, the end caps in Barnes & Noble are put together by the employees in that particular Barnes & Noble. The tables may be put together by like corporate, but the end caps are put together by the people in that Barnes & Noble because it's based on what the people in that Barnes & Noble are reading, how much space they have, the layout of their store, all of that. Fun things you find out when your friend has been a manager at Barnes & Noble for, almost 15 years now. I have a lot of friends who, but I was looking at this end cap, right? This end display, and looking at this going, so if you like Fourth Wing, dragon riders, the dragons getting mated together and therefore mating the people, and then romance novel fantasy elements. Fine. You will like these books. And it recommended Aragorn. I'm like, okay, maybe. One of these things is definitely not like the other. One of these things in this one, which is YA. Okay. Game of Thrones. I'm like, no. Game of Thrones. High fantasy political thriller. Fourth Wing, which its existence doesn't bother me. Its poor writing kind of does. It's... these two things are not like the other. I'm sitting there going, what I don't see on this entire end cap is any dragon riders of Pern. And I'm like, hi. And I go to one of these sales associates, I go, hey, so, you know, out of curiosity, when you were doing this, did you think of the dragon riders of Pern? They're going, what's that? I'm like, oh shit, I'm old. Anne McCaffrey. Huh? I'm like, And I look on their shelves because it's their fantasy section. I'm like, and I have very much noticed that that every bookstore, you know, they're not going to have everything. A lot of older writers aren't getting republished. A lot of these older books are not getting put back into the public view. I understand that. So I'm like, hey, let me take a quick look. I'm like, oh, pluck. And I hand the paperback of Volume 1 of Dragon Riders of Pern to the sales associate. She goes, well, okay, so it's a Dragon Rider book. So, okay, so I guess a Dragon Rider book should go on here. I'm like, no. Let me explain to you and why you should put a content warning if you're going to put this book on this display. Those of us who are of an age remember when this series was referred to by the author, I would remind you all, as dragon porn. Anne McCaffrey, we salute you. Have fun up there and pour one out for you. And I'm sorry that your son is such an asshole and really thinks that you did not write fantasy dragon writing, sci-fi porn of dragons who eat acid rain effectively. Because, hi, this was the late 60s, early 70s into the 80s, and the dragons in Pern are actually, humanity has colonized this planet called Pern, P-E-R-N. Also time travel shenanigans, but that happens later. That happens later. The first couple books don't involve time travel. Dragons, and they're on this planet, and the you had to mention the dolphins, Lysander. Lysander very obviously has read this series the same as I have. Trying to explain the existence of the dolphins doesn't make sense until you've read the book, but it is important. The dolphins are important. So the core premise is there are these weirs, W-E-I-R, where the dragon riders exist, and all of the local landowners and farmers and agrarians, rest of the agrarian society, support these weirs because they go out and literally ride the threadfall, and thread is literally red thread falling from the sky that if it hits the ground will destroy the farming, make it unfarmable. It also is really, really dangerous for the riders to be on the, to do this because they can be transported too far and all of these things are happening. But the dragons eat this. Yes, it is a metaphor for acid rain and all of these kind of things that are going to happen. Also weird alien parasites from the sky. That happens much later as well. But also, so these agrarian supporting, townships and castles and homes, fiefdoms send taxes, as in food, to the weirs to support them. And sometimes they're like, well, we don't have enough food to send you, so we're going to send you you have a clutch of dragons. We're going to send you, like, our young children who can then bond mentally with these dragons and then become dragon riders, maybe. Or they can just become servants in your house, in your weir, and they can just be non-dragon riding servants. And the main character in the first book, and in the main character in the first book, she gets sent for, basically it's a Cinderella retelling, the evil step-parent hates them, wants them gone, sends them off to the weir. She's thinking she's going to turn into the servant. Instead, she ends up being bonded with this dragon. Spoiler alert, it ends up being a really important dragon because only these particular type of colored dragons can lay eggs, even though they can lay eggs for dragons of multiple colors. And they're bonded, they're mentally bonded, and when the dragon goes into heat and picks a mate, so does the rider. And lots of fucking ensues. There was a reason these were called Dragon Rider porn. For a reason. And these go on. There are, how many books are there? The Dragon Riders of Pern by Anne McCaffrey. How many books? There are 24 novels and 2 short story collections. The last published in 2018 after, the last published in 2018. The first book is published in 1968, and the last book is published in 2018. Literally 50 years of dragon porn. And none of this was on this end cap. And they're like, well, I don't understand how this is such a big deal. I'm like... And to answer Safuela, is it Safuela's? Is that how you're pronouncing it? Tell me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, because I get the Sappho and Safuela, I guess. Words are hard. And I picked Prax Thesmophoria as my handle because I'm a major classics nerd. It's fine. But the fact that none of the Dragon Riders of Pern books, which have been consistently published for the last 50 years, okay. So remember last week, hi, for those of you who don't know, last week we were looking at Wikipedia and what it was kind of considering various things, and coming up with the fact that apparently Wikipedia thought that Clear and Present Danger was a dystopian novel. I don't think they understand what a political thriller was, but okay. And, yeah, Lysander, that was a thing. And I'm now looking at the overview of the Dragon Riders of Pern. And I get to this paragraph, right? The Pernese live in a pre-industrial society with lords, holds, harpers, musicians, entertainers, and teachers, and dragons, with occasional examples of higher technology like flamethrowers, the telegraph, chemical fertilizers, and powerful microscopes and telescopes. There are 4 basic classes: the weir folk, including the dragon riders who live in weirs, holders who rule holds, cities, towns, and farms, crafters, and the holdless who have no permanent home, including traders, displaced holders, and brigands. The society resembles feudal Europe, but with some significant differences, especially farmers are organized in their own guild, independent of the holders, rather than being serfs as in historical feudal societies. Also, there is no formal religion and nothing like the medieval church, the closest equivalent being the fact that the Dragon Riders, who have a planet-wide organization and to whom the tithe is due, though they are in no way sworn to celibacy, rather the reverse. I'm like, yeah, there's no celibacy in the Dragon Riders of Pern. Oh, God. And so I legitimately asked a question of the person who was putting together this current 2023 end cap in October, talking about this new book that was really, really popular on the social medias. And they're like, yeah, they're reading it for all the spicy stuff. I'm like, okay. And it's got dragons and it's got spicy stuff and mental bonding. Why no Pern? And I was legitimately told, well, they didn't write sex books that old, so obviously there's not really going to have a lot of sex in this. I was like, oh, they didn't? Anne McCaffrey and did not put sex in the Dragon Riders of Pern, and that's why you're gonna... I mean, there are legitimate critiques to make of a series that's 50 years old at this point. There are legitimate... I mean, actually, 1968 to 2024, almost 55 years old at this point. It is 55 years old. Like, there are legitimate critiques about maybe writing style, maybe themes that are more complicated about consent and how verbal consent is really important. And the question of whether or not the being driven into a heap by the dragons constitutes as consent. Very complicated issue. But saying that there was no sex in these books, I was like, oh. I know that Todd McCaffrey wants to rewrite his mother's career, but, no. No. So, I like supporting a variety of voices, and sometimes I like to turn around and go, okay, if we've gotten to this point, and this is what social media is pushing, and this is what social media is promoting, where did we come from, and why is this a big thing? And another thing that comes out of this, also kind of interesting thing is, I was scrolling through Instagram like I do, and I come across this post about, somebody going, oh no, I have to download and print all of my fan fiction before the Gen Z and Alphas get AO3 banned because they have people on Etsy who are legitimately selling printed bound copies of fan fiction. And I'm like, you can't do that. You can't do that. And people are like, well, why? Okay, number one, fan fiction cannot be sold. Hi. And they're like, whatever. And people are like, and then I'm looking at this and people are talking about, oh, the anti-shippers and the pro-shippers, and they're talking about this and this. And I'm like, yes, but do you understand? You're talking very specifically about Tumblr eras and all of these, 2013 posts these last 10 years. And I'm like, hi. Let's talk about the reason that Purity Spiral's event began happening is because of the purges of fanfiction.net, where legitimately fanfiction.net owners were getting pressure from the government, i.e. the people who own the internet. Yes, for those of you who don't remember, the World Wide Web began as a U.S. military industrial complex project. And the purges on LiveJournal and fanfiction.net happened because of government pressure about porn being freely accessible to minors with no restrictions. And they went in and purged, i.e. the site holder went in and deleted everything with a mature tag or had other tags. Most of it was slash. And yes, I still use that term. Some of it was fem slash, but most of it was male slash. And it literally just purged between, like, you were on the night before and 2 hours later, it was gone. So some of us always knew to download the story that you wanted and save it, and then you could print it out and put it in a binder, right? Like, I could even understand someone on Etsy selling the service of binding a fanfiction, but you cannot then sell the bound fanfiction. You can't just go on to AO3, say, hi, I like this particular work, I'm going to download it, bind it, make it look all pretty, and then sell it. No. You can't do that. You can sell the service. You can sell, hi, contact me if you want me to bound your particular copy of X work, but you can't sell it. That's not how that works. Please come back. Please remember that there is a history, and these reasons that these things occurred are really important to know. Yeah, Lysander, I still have, there's some stuff that I printed off. Yeah, they haven't been taught fanfiction history. And I will also prove exactly how old I am and how old my library was. And so actually, my first experience with fanfiction predates fanfiction.net and LiveJournal, because when I was 13, and I acknowledge the fact that children are going to get access to a lot of these things, and we all did. It's a thing. But when I was 13, it wasn't fanfiction.net that I first found fanfiction on. It was bound copies of Spock Kirk /zines in my library from the 70s and 80s. I would like you to know that those were a thing. And in the 70s and 80s, they were mail order zines that you would just order and whatever. So apparently, and the local library that we have is really, really great, because they actually are a charity library. And one of the things that they do is anybody can donate any books. And if it's not a book they have, and if it's in good enough condition, it goes on the shelf in the library. If it's a book, if it's a good condition, but also a copy of a book they already have, they'll put it in the bookstore that's attached to the library, where hardbacks are $2 and paperbacks are 50 cents. And children's books are a quarter. And all of that money goes back into running the library. And then if they're in lesser condition, they meet the requirements that are put in place by the state and the feds, they get donated to the prison literacy programs, right? Because there's a lot of restrictions on what can go into the prison and all that kind of stuff. So all of the books that get donated used. So apparently at one point, somebody donated all of their Spock Kirk fanzines for like 30 years. And you're like, yay. But this is why downloading these stories became a thing. This is why printing them out and putting them in binders became a thing. Also, printed them out and put them in binders, and then you could take them with you to school. I get that. I understand that. I understand that the reality of the way fan fiction functions means that all of these things are complicated. But the fact that each new generation that's coming onto the internet is very much like, oh, we are the first to do X. Y'all. Side note, entirely tangent, but mostly tied to the fact that social media is showing me what undereducated younglings are doing. And being like, yo, I'm really into water frying now. I'm like, what did you just say? Oh yeah, I put water, like a cup and a half of water in my air fryer, and I put a chicken breast in it, and then I air fry it. I'm like, you're poaching a chicken in your air fryer, which, by the way, I don't think your air fryer is actually designed to do, because I don't think they're designed to hold liquid like that. But oh my god, just, oh Lord. No, it's not going to explode, but you might explode the air fryer. Because the thing is, it's like, just get a pot with water in it. And also, shout out to whoever rebranded and made air frying the term. You are on the same level with pre-owned car. Because, my boy, it's a convection oven. It's a mini convection oven. That's all an air fryer is. It's a convection oven that sits on your counter. I'm just like, just, okay. I'm okay. Look, I understand that there are people who don't know, and I get that. And I make a point of saying, like, lack of education and not knowing something means that ignorance is not a crime. Choosing to remain ignorant when you find out that you are ignorant is a crime, in my opinion. I would teach a course on, a set course on fan fiction. I mean, I would do it. I think it would be a great time. And yeah, I mean, like, yeah, there was, Flash writing ladies were a strong contributor to keeping Star Trek popular in the back of the day. Exactly. Look, I'm not sending you to read romanticises. This I don't think counts as a romantasy, the Fey Realm series. This is a really good, well, there's romance in it, but the plot is very much a poetic Ada or myth, and the romance is not the main focus of the plot, although it is a major theme. Killing Moon is not a romantasy. This is just straight fantasy and death. Okay, the Dangerous series, Dangerous Assassin, Dangerous Outlaw, those could be considered maybe, possibly, romantasy, but I think actually instead that they will be more connected to, again, romance genre, high fantasy. Okay. Oh, look, I got another card. Yay! Very nice little postcard. Her bookmark is very useful. Actually, Crit, I have not seen anything by Elizabeth Wheatley in my local romance in the bookstore. She might just only be selling independently. Because I don't think she's not a traditionally published author. She's a self-published author who does a lot of independent work. Catherine, look, Coldrake, Thaedred, Thaedred is my boy. Nothing needs to happen to him. Yeah, I got them. No, so for those of you who don't know, yep, boop, 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 boop. Let us pull up, you can get them on her website if you go into shop and then the book series, or you shop book format and you just click paperbacks. Actually, Dangerous, like, they're all, yeah, no worries. It's very obvious that she's running this as a one-woman shop. She's got a lot of stuff going, and for an independent author running their own website, it's actually pretty well done and really works. Hashtag not sponsored in any way. And again, but I do also see where there are things that are not perfect. Oh, look, it's now out. It is now out, and I can order it for book 5. And, yeah, that's gonna be a thing. But, yeah, tend to be online or their own local shops. The Fey Realm series, Catherine Reynolds, she's on Amazon. And so you can get the ebook versions of the Fey Realm series through Kindle Unlimited for free. I'm choosing because I like reading better in a physical media. It helps me keep things writing. And it helps me, it's easier for me to read. It makes life better for me. But I also recognize that people want to read, in a digital format. Both are valid. There are ebooks, there are audiobooks, there are physical copies, whichever you want to read. Enjoy the book and embrace the things. But I think we are now at the point of the day, because it is 11:30, where we talk about what I'm going to read for next week. I do preserve the trees as books. People are like, I remember being much younger in a older edition, i.e. second edition, D&D, and people would be like, you know, doing those sorting quizzes, whatever, and all those things, and you're like, so what is your core class? I'm like, well, the core class I play is support, either healers or bards, clerics or bards, occasionally druids. But if whatever, and then people would be like, no, you read too much, you're obviously a wizard. And I was like, okay, you're not wrong, but, you know. So Lysander, which one are you bumping up? The Fey Realm series or the Dangerous Assassin series or, the Killing Moon? Out of curiosity. But yeah. So, what are we reading for next week? Well, very obviously I'm reading the sequel, the part 2 of this duology, The Shadowed Sun. Oh, the Fey Realm and the Killing Moon. So, reading part 2, The Shadowed Sun. I'm going to have to wait a week because my library, Jade Legacy, which is the 3rd book in the series, Jade Legacy is currently on back order, so I'm not going to be able to read that next week. So I will read Shadowed Sun. I will read book 4 of the Fey Realm series with the Queen's Shadows. Is the Queen's Shadows the one with the... Yes, here we go. Bookshop.org. Oh wait, they're on Bookshop. They're also on book. Catherine Reynolds' Face series is also on Bookshop.org, which is great because I've been trying to buy more through them. Okay, so these are interesting. They're available on Amazon and bookshop.org. Okay, so view all 4. Okay. Where are the books? How do I... You're on here, Catherine. Where are your books? Is your book not on here? Okay, apparently not. But I do know that they're on Amazon. Here we go. Fey Realm series. Book 4. Oh yes, book 4 is going to be about our very gay boys. Our summer winter court gay elf boys. So, this is going to be... I'm going to order this one. I'm just going to order the next 2 books. I'm going to buy these 2 right now. Boop. I'm literally going to buy them right now. That way I have them. Oh. No, damn it. No, I don't... poop. Can I didn't want the... I don't want the digital copy. I want the... Oh, poop. Can I... Well, you know what? I'm going to buy them multiple ways, is the answer. Apparently. I hate when literally I'm sitting here going, yo, I want to buy this physical copy. And I'm looking at the physical copies. And I'm like, please make sure I buy the physical copies. I'm not going to get pissy about $10. Well, yeah, because the Amazon Prime is a thing that they want to do, and I'm just like, okay. I don't know that I could do that easily, but I don't object to figuring out doing an ebook giveaway. If I'm going to do that, I would contact the authors first. And I would specifically contact them and be like, well, it doesn't matter. And I'd be like, hey, let me contact the author and be like, I really enjoyed your books. I think they're really, really great. Are you okay with me doing a free giveaway? Is me doing a giveaway going to harm you in any way? Because there are lots of really strange rules with printing on Amazon. And I understand that. And that's one of the things that I would make a point of doing for particularly Catherine, because I know her personally. Hi, by the way, I do know Catherine tangentially. I know Zero, her husband, more. From streaming spaces, because hi, I'm a streamer. But because of that, I want to be like, hey, I'm really, really like your books. I'm not in any way saying that I'm, sponsored or anything, but I wanted to see about getting together to do a giveaway kind of thing, and we'll see what happens. I would contact the authors individually for that, particularly authors that are independently published, because I think it'd be really supporting them, and I think that's a really kind of good thing to do. I know that authors who are not independently published are who are traditionally published are much more bound with what they can and cannot give away. So the next book in this series, which is The Queen's Swords, which is our very, very hella gay, like, look at these boys. Also, Catherine does all of her own cover art on these editions. So yay, she did the art design on these. For our summer and winter court boys. Going to read that. Going to read Dangerous Outlaw, because it's here. And going to read Shadowed Sun, which is the sequel to Shadowed Sun. Okay, that's a really long one. What is that? Oh, that time I got drunk and saved a demon. Kimberly Lemming. I have seen this book. Oh, that's not what you wanted. Really, Coldrake? Really? That's not what you wanted? Or is it? So Coldrake sent this one. I have seen this book pop up in romance fantasy circles. I have seen this on Instagram and other social media. Don't know, never read it, couldn't say. However, I've heard that people really enjoy it. I've also heard people say that it reads like a D&D character backstory, which is not a bad thing. But it's a very particular when I say it reads like a D&D character backstory, there is an assumption that certain things that are in the work are assuming a cultural literacy of playing D&D and taking certain cultural literacy points from a D&D understanding. Oh yeah, she is Kimberly Lemming writes really great books. She's also, I've heard really great positive things about this particular one. For a, Lysander, hold. 30 seconds. Hold, everybody. Hold. Hi. No, Lysander, you're not technically derailing. I am just pointing out that you said specifically you are in the mood for knightly romance. You know, the whole bodyguarding and yearning and oaths and so forth. Volume 1 of this book. Volume 1. The White Witch, Marsilia, leads a happy life in the Fey worlds of the mortal realm. When a dark entity threatens her home, she seeks the aid from an elder witch. Fjall is a dwarven warrior outcast from his society. Honorable and steadfast, he mistrusts those who wield magic. In debt to the elder witch, he finds himself an unwilling companion on Marsilia's quest to save her home. Can the White Witch and the dwarf learn to cooperate before the darkness consumes all that they love? Lysander, this is volume 1 of the Fey Realm series. This is Marsilia has to go on quest, and my boy Fjall, who, by the way, is a dwarf who is 6'8", and makes a point of, wait, where's the line? It is in this, it's in book 1. I have this. Where is it? It is early in this book. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. Anyways, there's a line that I can't immediately find right away, but it is literally like, so why do all of the mortal stories say that dwarves are little people? And he turns around and says, well, all of the mortals also talk about the fact that witches have a humpback, a pointy nose, and warts. It's all about more humans taking over power away from the elves and all of these other fey creatures. But yes, my boy, you want that story? This knightly yearning romance, swear to protect each other, slow burn, fall in love? This is volume 1. This is volume 2, The Wolf and the Warlock. This is volume 3, The Broken Dragon, where we are now well into the whole plot. The Wild Hunt is on the loose, and you are meeting some very interesting and complex characters, and you're playing through the whole thing. And this is why I say this series reads like a Poetic Ada or the great chivalric romances. Like, and by that I mean like the Song of Roland, right? Like, not what we think of as chivalric romance, but like actual chivalric romances. And it is very much worth it. So, fun fact, Coldrake, they say a lot you at 1,000 books you officially become a library. What are you at 2,000? Asking for a friend. I'm the friend, by the way. A bigger library. That's fair. A national treasury. No, I'm not that level. I'm like not Library of Congress level. But yes, okay, back on track. Dangerous Outlaw, which is book 2 of the Dangerous Assassin series, and I can't read you the back because it's a spoiler for events for book 1. I can't read you the back of book 2. I'm going to read this, book 4 of this, which is The Queen's Sword, which is, book 4 is the next one in this series, and I'm guessing is going to have a lot to do with our hella gay dwarves, or elves, and actual elves, like Seelie and Unseelie Court, Winter and Summer Court elves. The Shadowed Sun, The Queen's Sword, and Dangerous Outlaw. Okay. Plus, we're still working on our read-along for the month. And at the end of the month, it will be our discussion of Alexandria Link by Steve Berry, which is the second Cotton Malone book. And then Golden Sun, which is the second Pierce Brown Red Rising novel. Content warning for Golden Sun. All the things. If you thought Red Rising is bad, there's more of it in Golden Sun. So, I think we'll be good. And I'm here in case, anyone have any other suggestions about what they're reading, anything else that they're looking forward to. There have been a lot of, recently released books that are, coming out in the next couple weeks. I know a lot of people who are all up online are like, oh my god, it's all about Sarah J. Maas. I'm like, okay, fine. You do that. Out of curiosity. Oh, that's the other series I want to read. So I figure I have to add this to my list of things to read, which is, it's a young adult series. This is not going to happen this week, but, Song of Silver Flame Like Night, which is a fantasy, inspired by Chinese mythology. Yeah, these are beautiful covers. So, Song of Silver Flame Like Night, and its sequel, because this is also a duology, its sequel, Dark Star Burning, Ash Falls White, is just released. This came out in January. And very intrigued by that. I also understand, from my understanding... Okay, I've got another question, y'all. What do we feel about the fact... I have some issues. What do we feel about the fact that Sarah J. Maas's book has 5 different bonus chapters that you can only read those 5 different bonus chapters, all of them, if you buy all 5 of the special editions, right? There's a Barnes & Noble edition, a Walmart edition, other kind of special editions. And, the only way you're going to be able to read the entire bonus chapters, are they actual bonus chapters? They don't matter to the plot of the book? Or are they are they just bonus material? Because if they're just bonus material, fuck it, I don't care. I'll wait, and eventually someone will post that shit online. But if it's actual, like, plot relevant chapters, I feel like that's a shitty move. Ooh. Yeah, Cole Drake. I have those David Weber books. Baen, by the way. Baen, great publishing company. Baen, literally the best publishing company, because they will give you the first book for free. You can go online to Baen.com right now. Like, we can go online to Baen.com right this second. Pop in right over here. See, here's Baen. And go click on the free library. And just, what's free? What free books do you want to read? The first read's free. Exactly. Weber. David Weber. Hi. You could just go, what is it? Wait, Fortune. Oh, that's David Drake. I don't want David Drake. I want David Weber. Oh, it's a new companion, Honorverse companion. You can read the sample. Or you can go, just look up David Weber and look at, okay, those are ebooks that are no longer available. Oh, those are the bundles. Okay. He has 13 pages. Let's go to page 13. Let's pull up my favorite book by David Weber, which is, you can just download the first book of Oath of Swords from Baen. And go read that book. Hi, go read this book and understand when I say content warning for sexual assault, but it is very important, and I do think it is when I was teaching, it was the book I would put in the hands of every male student, because I thought it did a really good job of explaining if you come across someone who is acting in this manner, who is attempting to sexually assault someone, what should you do? You know, what is your response? And how should you do it? And even if it is a difficult choice, why you should be the right one to do it. And it was originally published in 1995. Yeah, that book is... So funny story. Yeah, better bonuses were the, sample of the audiobook as a CD, cloth map, character art. The map, oh god, what I loved about hardcover editions, when you had the map actually folded into the back page, and it would fold all the way out so that you could then have it sitting next to you as you read the book, and you could go reference what was literally right next to you. I will also say the other reason I love Oath of Swords. So funny note, like, I was talking with my parents, and my mother, who, like, all of us are readers, all of these things, and my mother reads a lot of romance, but she also reads a lot of mysteries and all of these things, and, she has been a Nora Roberts fan for decades. Also, anybody who's out here coming for Nora Roberts, bitch, don't even play. Don't mess with Nora Roberts. Whatever. Leave her alone. She got pills to pay. She's fine. But she was like, yeah, I just finished the first book in Nora Roberts' new series. It was really kind of good, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sad I'm going to have to wait like 6 months. And my dad and I legit looked at her and go, yeah, I'm sorry, you have to wait 6 months. And then I pulled up a publication deadline dates for the Oath of Swords series, which, by the way, is the side series that David Weber has written. The main story series that he's written, is science fantasy. It's science fiction, space opera, biggest space opera. The Honorverse all of the space opera and healthy polyamorous relationships and telepathic intelligent cats. There you go. I've sold you on the Honor Harrington series. Also, Honor Harrington is the badass female lead that we all wanted in life, who was complex and interesting and all of these things. But the actual publication dates for the Oath of Swords series, Oath of Swords is published in 1995. War God's Own, which is book 2, is published in 1999. Sword of the South, no, then it goes Wind Rider's Oath, which is book 3. Book 3 of Wind Rider's Oath is published in 2004, right? You had to wait 5 years to go, oh, and then you get Sword of the South, 2004. Something happens in Wind Rider's Oath. Like, you're not sure whether a character is alive or dead at the end of that book. And that book comes out in 2004. And the sequel, Sword of the South, doesn't come out until 2015. 11 years later. And you're like, and unlike Patrick Rothfuss or George R.R. Martin, David Weber is at least out here writing 3 other series at the time. Right? Like, I get it. This fantasy series that he has, which is, if I haven't sold you on Oath of Swords yet, the reason why I also think everyone should read it is one of the best depictions of a paladin, a lawful, well, mostly lawful, good paladin. And I say mostly because there are 2 points where he willingly breaks laws of culture, but it also because he has to uphold the higher law of society. And you're like, okay, I'm just going to go with him and go with the fact that he is a lawful good paladin, but he is a lawful good paladin who I think every D&D player who wants to play a paladin should read and go, you know what? He is not a horrible stick in the mud who can't, you know, support people having fun, do interesting things, be an interesting character. Like, Basil Bannockson is, look, one of my favorite lines from this book is always been the blurb line on the back, which is, whom the gods would recruit, they first tick off. You're like, what? I'm confused, and I want to read more. Our hero, the unlikely paladin Basil Bannockson of the horse stealer Haradani. He's no knight in shining armor. He's a Haradani, a race known for their uncontrollable rages, bloodthirsty tendencies, and inability to maintain civilized conduct. None of the other 5 races of man like the Haradani. Besides his ethnic burden, Basil has problems of his own to deal with. A violated hostage bond, a vengeful prince, a price on his head. He doesn't want to mess with anybody else's problems, let alone a god's, let alone the war gods. So how does he end up 1,000 leagues from home, neck deep in political intrigue, assassins, demons, psionicists, evil sorcery, white sorcery, dark gods, good gods, bad poets, greedy landlords, and most of Bortolak Bay? Well, it's all the war gods' fault. And that is a 100% accurate blurb on the back of that book. Not for nothing. It could be a really bad road trip, but it is the best kind of bad road trip. Yeah, exactly, Coldrake. The Franz Lieber, Farad, and Grey Mouser, which are not typical, although they are really good examples, but they are not what people think of as good examples of that rogue and fighter coordinated. Yeah. And people are like, we're still waiting on Patrick Rothfuss's book 3. Oh, I don't think you're ever going to get that book, by the way. Sorry. I also don't think anybody's ever actually going to get the end of A Song of Ice and Fire. I figure that's going to be a thing. Yeah, Fritz. Sorry. But yeah. So, now that we've rambled for a while, I should also pull up the other, so that you also can have an experience of the other great, because I'm pretty sure that one's free as well. You can also get a free version of the first Honor Harrington book, which is On Basilisk Station. Honor Harrington. Having made him look a fool, she's been exiled to Basilisk Station in disgrace and set up for ruin by a superior who hates her. Her demoralized crew blames her for the ship's humiliating posting to an out-of-the-way picket station. The Aborigines of the system, yes, this is an intentional use of that word, and yes, it does actually have bearing in this world and setting, and yes, it is not discriminatory in this instance because it is not, it's taken for a particular word. Only of the system's only habitable planet are smoking homicide-induced hallucinogens. Also true. The Parliament isn't sure it wants to keep the place. The major local industry is smuggling. The merchant cartels want her head. The star-conquering so-called Republic of Haven is up to something. And Honor Harrington has a single overage limit light cruiser with an armament that doesn't work to police the entire system. But the people out to get her have made one mistake. They've made her mad. God, I love this series. Also, can we, oh, I need to do this so that I can do, nope. That. There we go. Can we appreciate the dopeness that is, this is, by the way, is a telepathic, sentient cat. And this is Honor. And as the series goes on, she will get involved in a polyamorous relationship with a man who's significantly older than her, but then again, they're both adults at the time, and he's significantly older than her because he's from an evolutionary species that can live significantly longer. And the age gap isn't really like an age gap kind of thing. It just happens to be he's older because he's lived long, because he's species and time and planets are a thing. But yes, Honor Harrington. Also recommend that series. Since I'm talking about recommending series. Ah, that's the problem. Okay. They are actually really good. I also really appreciate the fact that David Weber has started writing a young adult series for Honor Harrington, or Stephanie Harrington. And it's a young adult series, and the other great thing I love about Bane is that for all their young adult books, or any books that they think that could be relevant, they create a teacher's guide, right? So that teachers can teach interesting books in schools. Also, we want to talk about authors. So we talk about, like, David Weber is an older white dude author. Fine. He has always written women and complex women, and again, the main character in his longest running series is a woman. He's also written a variety of different women who have different strengths, and how the strengths are... You can be a very feminine presenting woman and still be a strong, powerful figure. You can be a, you know, very traditional badass go-getter woman and also be a particularly strong female character. Those two things can coexist. I also love the fact that he uses sexual assault very sparingly. Oath of Swords, he uses it twice, but in both of those instances, it's highlighted to show that this is a bad thing, that this is something that should not happen, and that isn't glorified, isn't, and bad things happen to the people involved, and that it's, although technically I guess you could argue that it is a plot point for the main character, it's not, because what it is it's the main character choosing to do the right thing and intervene and stop and put themselves in a position of being like, no, you do not allow this to happen. And so I'll give him a lot of credit for that. He very rarely uses sexual assault across his other... Oh no. Really? Look. 2024. 2024. It's only the third day of February, and already you're taking great heroes. But he doesn't use... Like, I've read the opening sexual assault scene in Oath of Swords versus a sexual assault... Yeah, he did. I was like, David Drake died in December of 2023. But that reminded me of someone else who died yesterday, and if you want to look that up, you can. I'm not going to bring it down to everybody here, but do so. But going back to David Weber, like, I've read the opening sexual assault scene in Oath of Swords and what it means versus the sexual assault depictions in George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones. And every time it happens in a Game of Thrones, he's like, well, it has to be there for plot reasons, or it would have actually just happened. Or, you know, this is the world in which it is, let me make it dark and brooding, versus David Weber, like, yes, this might be an actual thing in the world, but that doesn't mean you can accept it, and that doesn't mean that you should accept it, and the person doing the sexual assault is a bad person and should be stopped. Right? Like, the way in which that topic is used in their books is vastly different, and I will read David Weber's anytime over George R.R. Martin. So, let us find something else so we don't end on that level of downer. Oh, we were looking at Barnes & Noble's Top 100. That's what we were doing. I have read Tanya Huff. I've read Tanya Huff's Valor series. I didn't hate it. And I like it's one of those things. Tanya Huff, I don't hate, but I think for me it's the same problem I'm having right now with Fonda Lee's I'm not really identifying with any of the characters or I didn't connect with any of them. I read them all because they were there. I just wasn't a big kind of thing at the moment. Yeah, they got really weird. Diane Duane's Doorway series is also very good and very interesting, and includes complicated depictions that I also think are important. I have decided what my problem is with Sarah J. Maas. I don't think the world building is very entertaining or very complex. It's just passable. It is what it is. But so then when you end up with the romance, it's very generic romance, and it's very generic fantasy, and not in an entertaining, well-written kind of way. So from my point of view, it just kind of is there. Okay, so this is another one that keeps currently popping up on all of the socials. When the Moon Hatched, which is another romantasy with dragons in it. Apparently that's the current genre. So Coldrake. Remember how I said there was this, my entire discussion of the end cap in Barnes & Noble about Fourth Wing, or about this, if you like this book, you should read these. Well, Fourth Wing was the book that they were talking about. I will probably never read that. It didn't pass the first page test for me, and it, from everything that I have heard about it, it is very much a heavy, much more romances than fantasy. And also, it's like they took parts of Red Rising's, spoiler warning for Red Rising, but I'm gonna put the spoiler warning tag up for Red Rising. So Red Rising by Pierce Brown is a military school book where it is literally a book about culling the weak of your population, and then the strong will go on to become rulers of society and the elite of the military, right? Like, you could write your own ticket if you survive this academy. There's lots of death, there's lots of murder, all of the murder, and so many things written into that book. The implication of sexual assault, the implication of slavery, all of the bad things. Like, Red Rising is to show you this society is horrible, horrible book, and it is not, Lysander, it is not boarding school drama. It is Lord of the Flies, Hunger Games, and murder. That's what Red Rising is. But yeah. It's not even a boarding school. It is a military academy where the ones who are selected and make the passing, then, spoiler warning is still up, have to, you can only have 50% of the people who actually get admitted advance, and to advance you have to you get put in a room with this other person, and there is a ring, and one of you has to walk out with that ring, and the only way to do it is if you kill have the one student kill the other. And then, it's all death games. And then they're broken up into houses, as in the houses of the 12 Olympian gods, and just kind of dumped. in this valley and said, survive on what you have or don't have, or you can take it from your neighbor. And you could then imprison or enslave your neighbor's schools and possibly murderize the fuck out of everyone else. Like, this whole thing is to cull the population so that you ended up, yeah, survival of the fittest / dumbest / it is. Red Rising is a very interesting book because people say that it's weirdly generic, but it's not. And then people are like, well, it's like this, and you're like, but not really, because it came out before then. And it's it's dark. It's hella dark. It's hella dark. So Fourth Wing takes the concept, or at least as I have understood and has been given in multiple reviews and all of these things, takes the concept as oh, crit. Red Rising is even worse dystopian because it's set on Mars and the main character grew up. The main character is 16, by the way, and he got, he's married at the beginning of the book. At the beginning of the book, he is 16. He is married. He's been working deep mining helium-3 in driving a drill bit in Mars. And, oh, no. Totally understand the cynicism, Lysander. This is, he literally, Darrow, again, spoiler tag is up. Darrow grew up in these mines, and he is a red caste. There are higher level colors of caste, and he believes, and everyone who he knows believes, that they are mining this helium-3 to produce a terraforming so eventually humans can escape Earth and come to Mars because Earth is overcrowded. And then he finds out in the first book, in the first 2 chapters, hi, by the way, no, that isn't actually a thing. You all are slaves. We escaped Earth generations ago. Mars has been terraformed for over 100 years, and we just use you as slave labor and don't even tell you that you're actually slave labor. Oh yeah, you are gonna try and rebel, and your rebellion is, singing a song that's politically frowned upon and getting your wife gets executed, who's 16. And one of the most heartbreaking moments in this first couple chapters is literally the fact and understanding the fact that Mars's different gravity means that hanging somebody means you can't, the gravity prevents them from snapping their neck. So if for some reason an individual gets sentenced to death, just hanging them won't snap their neck. They'll just suffocate, which means that they won't actually die. And so eventually the government will allow family members to pull on their family members' feet to snap their neck and kill them. Like, that's the level of dystopia we are dealing with. And Darrow, things happen. Darrow finds out that he is part of this slave caste. He wants to join. He wants revenge. He ends up being believed executed, but actually gets snuck out, and then goes through genetic and physical manipulation so that he can pass for the Golds, who are the highest caste, enter this academy so that he can then eventually, as a member of the Resistance, take power in one of these positions of power. But to do that, he has to work within the system, and he murders the fuck out of everybody. Like, there is murder all over the place. Would you like some murder? Oh, Darrow's coming. He would like to murder you, and he was gonna murder you. And then there's gonna be just, like, more murder, and stabbing, and then more murder. just here. It is a book. It is, I tell you, there's I want, when people talk about books that should have content warnings, Red Rising is one of them. Everything in Red Rising serves a purpose, and it is a horrible lens to look at of all of the bad things of society, and you want to root for Darrow to change this society, and then you're like, oh, Darrow didn't kill like, I actually, because we were doing this as the community read-along, we read Red Rising, which is book 1 for January. We're reading Golden Sun, which is book 2 for February, and the last week of February we'll talk about that one in spoiler territory. And when I say that there are books that should have content warning, I mean the Red Rising series. And when people are like, yeah, this horrible society and Darrow's gonna overthrow them, and then I was like, yeah, he's gonna just kill everybody to do it. And this time I went through and counted all of the number of people that Darrow actually kills. Now remember, he has joined and infiltrated the society at 16 to join this military academy at 16. Now, admittedly, he's more emotionally mature than other people, the actual Golds, because he has been an adult as a Red for 3 years, right? Like, and he's been married, and he's suffered as a Red, and has been treated as an adult by his society as a Red for 3 years. But as a Gold, all of these other people, all of these other teenagers that he is with as Golds are treated as teenagers and have the development of teenagers. And Darrow has the development of adult. And the two of them have come in, or Darrow has come in, and I shit you not. Yes, Lysander. Lysander says, so the whole military academy is a way for the ruling class to keep the next generation from producing too many rivals for their power. Yeah, it's a way because the society firmly believes that if there's too much that there has to be a cap on the population, because if there's too many, then like, if you allow the median to survive, then that doesn't then you aren't driving forward the empire, and the empire no longer continues to produce, and so it becomes too decadent and will fall, is the theory. So there are various points where the society is, the Golds are just culled. And you're like, this military academy is literally just the population culling itself. And then the people who like the best of the best will rise to the top. And then they will, and because of course this is televised to the military, so that the high-ranking members of the military can turn around and look at these kids who are surviving and go, I want to offer an apprenticeship to that one, and he can then join my battalion, my army, my fleet, and I will teach him how to be a fleet commander, a planetary governor, all of this. And you're like... And Darrow is like, I need to get the best choices that I can. And the choice that Darrow makes at the end of Red Rising is just... because he's fighting really hard with his personal desire for vengeance versus the group that put him in this position's rebellion's desire to infiltrate the top of the top. And he chooses what will get him that position at the top of the top, and he manipulates the fuck out of this situation. And you're reading this book and you're like, I agree, this whole thing needs to be taken down, I support the revolution. Darrow, you killed 150 people, like just straight up hand to hand murder with a blade, or sometimes just beating somebody to death. in this one book that I could count, right? Like, and that may or may not, that count is probably wrong because there's people that die off screen and you're not 100% sure of whether or not Darrow actually kills them. Okay? Like, there is just a shit ton of murder in this book. Oh yeah, the ones at the very tippy top are not going to ever give up their positions of power. It's a I frequently agree with books' themes, but I also point out that maybe they're like, a book is not actually an endorsement for something, number one. And number two, you don't actually so the comparison I've always made to Darrow in Red Rising is people are like, hey Jim, welcome in. When we were talking about Red Rising and comparisons people want to make, oh, it's dystopian, oh, it's Hunger Games, oh, it's, you know, Lord of the Flies. I'm like, yeah, it's all that. But you know what it really is? It's Code Geass. Code Geass. And Gurren Lagann. If it's as if Gurren Lagann and Code Geass had a child, and that child is Darrow. And if you don't know what those anime are, does the situation get better in book 2? Find out by the end of February. I'm not going to give that spoiler because that's a spoiler for, you know, the whole book. So Fourth Wing wants to be the military academy in Red Rising with the Dragon Riders of Pern. Oh, you can die on this run up to this school. Okay, I saw that in Darrow. Oh, you can, when you get admitted to this school, anybody can kill you except when you're sleeping. Like, anybody can just walk up and kill you and nobody can stop you. I'm like, no, you've got like way too many, you've got planned and metered sols for dueling. You've got, okay, I guess a couple of people have died, but no one else is really concerned. You can sleep and not have people murder you. And all of that stops once you bond a dragon. Like, if you bond a dragon, they can no longer kill you. So my answer is don't compare it to Red Rising at all. Also, apparently the sex scenes aren't that great, and there's a lot of question about consent, and which, fine, there should be questions about consent when it comes to your dragons have bonded, you're mentally bonded to a dragon, and you are, your dragons are now fucking, and you're going to fuck the person that your dragon is, that's bonded to the dragon that your dragon is fucking. Okay, that's a question for consent. But apparently there's an entire point where they're like, oh, well, you could take suppression medication and not be that bonded to your dragon. So you wouldn't have to do this. And I'm like, more complex consent issues. Coldrake, I don't actually assume that. I assume most of these books are written by women, and most of these books are written in most romance fantasy is written by women, and most romance fantasy is written by women for a variety of reasons within their own society, you know, within their own wants and needs and whatever. And I think that they have had sex. Have they had the sex that they want? Maybe not, but that's an entirely separate issue, and I'm not getting into the author's actual bedroom. Like, that's an entirely separate issue. So, this one, When the Moon Hatched, is supposed to be another dragon fantasy romance. The creators did not expect their beloved dragons to sail skyward upon their end, to curl into balls just beyond gravity's grip, littering the sky with tombstones, with moons. They certainly did not expect them to fall. As a valued elding blade of the rebellion group Fjord der Auth, Rave's job is to kill, to complete orders, and never get caught. When a renowned bounty hunter is employed by the Crown to capture a member of the Eighth, Rave's world is turned upside down. Blood spills, hearts break, and Rave finds herself at the mercy of the Guild of Nobles, a group of dual-beaded elementals who I don't understand, like, I'm sure that makes sense once you read the book, but I wouldn't put something like this in your description that is so vague that nobody understands it without an explanation. Dual-beaded elementals who intend to turn her into a political statement. Only death will set her free. Crushed beneath a mourning weight, Khan Vegor took the head of a king and donned his melted crown. Now a tireless quest to assuage the never-ebbing ache in his chest, his hunt for a moon shard lures him into the belly of Gore's notorious prison, where he stumbles upon something that rips apart his perception of reality. A shackled miracle with eyes full of rage and blood on her hands. The echo of the past sings louder than the creator themselves, and even Reeve can't ignore the truths blaring at her from a warmer, happier time. However, there's more to this song than meets the eye, and some truths, they're too poisonous to swallow. When the Moon Hatched is a fast-paced fantasy romance for fans of witty banter and strong, sassy protagonists. Beneath the cover is an immersive, vibrant world with mysterious creatures, a unique magic system, and a love that blazed through the ages. Interesting. Interesting. Possibly, maybe. Lysander says, wait, dragons turn into orbital missiles as part of their life cycle? Okay, kind of intriguing. And then they heat up in re-entry in the shell cracks and plant themselves in the ground on impact? Tricky to onboard a reader. Yeah, tricky to onboard a reader into your setting. So Coldrake says, going back to the romance point, but they know that old phrase, sex sells, is BS, and poorly written sex just shuts most readers down. Not according to TikTok or Instagram. Spice and erotica and romance fiction is now become the predominant push on a variety of various social media platforms in discussion of books. Whether I agree with it or not, that is the way to go. Yep, that is indeed a thing. So most people, it kind of really depends. The large press for romance to increase in books has been there for a while. The current #1 selling fantasy author is Sarah J. Maas, and her Court of Thorns and Roses series is printing money at the moment. And because of that, a lot of people are really into romance and romance fantasy and kinky mentally bonded sex with your fated mate, who may or may not be a fae, using the wrong definition of the term, but whatever. So for example, let's look at Barnes & Noble's top 100 best-selling books. Top 20. House of Flame and Shadow, which is the most recent release, as in it came out February 1st, or January 30th, excuse me, for Sarah J. Maas. Oh, no, these are based on sales. So these are the top 100 best-selling is just pure land sales. Sarah J. Maas, romance fantasy. The Veiled Kingdom, also, from what I understand, romance fantasy. Kristen Hanna, The Women, no, that's a Vietnam War book. Where's Molly? Horror. If Only I Had Told Her, romance. Dixon Rules, the Campus series. Teen romance. The House of Blood and Earth, Sarah J. Maas. So there are 2 Sarah J. Maas in the top 10. Guild and Glint, both are romance fantasy, and both are actually technically Guild and Glint are both Guild, Glint, and Gleam and Glow are all romance fantasy, and I believe they're also all YA, is that correct? Yeah, it's also dark fantasy, and it's not YA. I'm sorry. So all of these 4 books have also, by the way, Sarah J. Maas, Raven Kennedy's Plated Prisoner series, really big on Instagram and TikTok. Sarah J. Maas, 3rd book of Sarah J. Maas's is currently here. Powerless, another romance fantasy, but is supposed to be really actually positive. Oh, look, book 5 of the Plated Prisoner series. Like, people are just buying the entire series because they're seeing it on Instagram, whatever. Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Romance fantasy, but in a very different way, and I wouldn't call it romantasy in the same kind of genre. Percy Jackson, This is the Honey, an anthology of contemporary black poets. Ooh, look, something that's not romance related. The Book of Bill, whatever. Butcher and Blackbird. Dark romance. Court of Thorns and Roses. This is book 1 in the series. Also romance fantasy. So going back to romance, Living in a Daze or Deception. Oh, that's bullshit. Goldfinch, which is part of the Plated Prisoner series. When the Moon Hatched, Powerful, Sarah J. Maas. Oh, look, Fourth Wing. This book, more Sarah J. Maas. Emily Henry is contemporary romance. King of Sloth, I believe, is part of an entire series about, Kings of Sin. Kings of Sin is an entirely contemporary romance about personifications of the 7 deadly sins. A Fate Inked in Blood. Actual fantasy. More Sarah J. Maas. Prisoner's Throne. Holly Black. Holly Black writes YA romance fantasy. So romance and expecting it is one thing, I guess, spice or not. Exactly. There's a whole discussion about spice that goes on. I so dislike sex scenes in my sci-fi and fiction. I'll go to erotica if and when I want to consume that. It's why I'm not personally a big fan of the fusion genre that is romantic fantasy, but that fact that people market it as fantasy. And I'm like, just market it as a romance, please, and thank you. Forced to fuck sex pollen can be quite fun trope to explore and twist and deconstruct. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that was just the first 40. If we look at... So Iron Flame, which is the sequel to Fourth Wing. Ninth House, which is Leigh Bardugo's... Shadow and Bone series. YA fantasy. There's some romance in it, but it's a thing. Heart Song, TJ Klune. This is romantic fantasy. TJ Klune also writes hella gay romance fantasy. And his first couple books were very much sci-fi. House in the Cerulean Sea is sci-fi dystopian, although it takes you a while to realize how really dystopian the world that they are set in is. Because it's like kind of like dystopia, if dystopia was written by Douglas Adams and Terry Pratchett or Neil Gaiman. And instead, there's, you know, this like cute, wholesome gay romance in this dystopia that doesn't have any sex in it. And people are like, well, there's no sex in it, so it's not good romance. So TJ Klune is like, here, hold my beer. And then wrote a bunch of gay werewolves. And apparently people picked up the first volume and were like, oh my god, this is just from the no sex author, whatever. And we're very, very surprised when TJ Klune was like, here, hold my beer. I actually like his works. I think he writes really well. I think he's a really great author. I'll probably read I haven't read the Green Creek series, but I probably will. Gothic Kana. Ooh, look, dark romance. And when we use the term apparently dark romance, it's specifically to be about the fact that the dark subject matter in the romance. More Sarah J. Maas. Ooh, look, Icebreaker. Because hockey romance is a major thing right now. If he had been with me, contemporary Killers of the Flower Moons. That's because of the Scorsese film. Hellbent, which is also part of Leigh Bardugo's YA Shadow and Bone. Solo Leveling, which is actually interesting. I'm really glad that that's made the top 100. The Do-Over, more contemporary romance. All the Sinners Bleed. Visions of Flesh and Blood. Oh, Jennifer Armentrout. This is a short story collection of romantic fantasy. More Sarah J. Maas. Haunting Adeline. Hunting Adeline. If you want your romance to be that your stalker, literally your stalker. Like, again, I do not kink shame. However, I remember when we said, don't be thirsty on Maine, y'all. Keep the horny off of Maine. Remember when those were things we said about the internet? Hunting Adeline is just straight up somebody's kink. But apparently it's very popular. Sarah J. Maas, again, All That Twisted Glory, Tahiri Mafi, I believe. Oh, this is the end of the trilogy, right? The Woven Kingdom. So the Woven Kingdom is... Oh, Persian mythology. Oh, this is interesting. To all the world, Eliza is a disposable servant, not the long-lost heir to an ancient Jinn kingdom forced to hide in plain sight. The Crown Prince Kamran has heard the prophecies foretelling the death of his king, but he could never have imagined that the servant girl with the strange eyes, the girl he couldn't put out of his mind, would one day soon uproot his kingdom and world. Perfect fans for Leigh Bardugo, Tamori Adeyemi, Sabara Tahir. This is an explosive first book in a new fantasy trilogy from New York Times bestselling. Okay. Reviews. Okay, so this is a fantasy that has a strong romance element in it, but it is not a romantic fantasy. I would say that this is an actual fantasy, but romance is a strong factor in it, but it's a good, strong side plot. Haunting Adeline, because Hunting Adeline could be the thing. Few author blogs where they're going, time is short, write that freaky story because no one else will. Fair. I suddenly know who's keeping bookstores in existence. Look, people mock it and have for generations, but the reality is, of the market of fiction, the biggest market share of fiction that is sold anywhere is romance. Romance is the big romance targeted to women by women make up the biggest market share of books that are sold in the United States, period. And it has been that way for generations. And when people mocked romance as not writers as not really good literature or good books, okay, they're formulaic, but that doesn't mean that they're bad, and they make shit tons of money. My problem with this romantasy genre is when people want to write a romance but think that they need more credibility, so they create a fantasy book that really is just a romance book with a fantasy whitewash on it. And then they're saying, like, well, we're more important. Sarah J. Maas has, done something really interesting. I'm like, Sherilyn Kenyon and Laurel K. Hamilton, who's the third? Sherilyn Kenyon, Laurel K. Hamilton, like, if we just look at Sherilyn Kenyon, right? Like, Sherilyn Kenyon has printed books for years. Literally. Multiple books. For years. She's finally getting much better, kind of. I would like to tell you that this is the a better cover art for Sherilyn Kenyon. Why do we have Chronicles of Nick? Oh. Yeah, okay. Interesting. Come here. Where's Acheron? Infinity. Give me my boy. Here's Acheron. Dark Hunter series. Dark Hunter series is printing money. And J.R. Ward, Karen Marie Moning, right? Like, all of these authors, Kristen Fian, all of these people who are like, Sarah J. Maas is doing something new. I'm like, no, she's not. She's just doing it in a popular way, and for some reason, her publisher isn't giving her romance, isn't putting her in romance. She's putting her as this fantasy author who happens to have romantic stories. And you're like, that's great. There are other people who've done that. I do not disparage Sherilyn Kenyon's existence. And I feel like a lot of these readers, and I think mostly it's the publishers because they can market to these particular readers, whatever, come into this world and they're like, Sarah J. Maas has just got this world epic kind of thing going, and they're so complex, and it kind of goes. Sherilyn Kenyon has a series. How many books are in this series now? One, two, three, 18. 18, 20, 22, So we're up to 22 books in the Dark Hunter series. Is there anything higher than that? Plus there's all the novellas and the reprints and all that. So there are 22 books in the Dark Hunter series. We've covered your fated mates. We've covered your dark, twisted history, world building, complex history. And that's what I wish more people understood, is that there are these other things out there that can be just as good and just as interesting and might give you, but read what you want to read. That's my thing. Read what you want to read. Just know that there might be other things out there as well that aren't just the current media darlings of the various social media platform. That's the thing. All of the demon lover, all of the Dark Hunter series, demons and angels and all of the things that came out of that, yeah. More Sarah J. Okay, so go back to this. 60, more Sarah J. Maas, Just Stab Me Now, which I pre-ordered, so it should be coming in soon. Actually, when it comes out, it's later in this month. Is by Jill Barrett. On YouTube. This is going to be hilarious. Bloodmarked, which I've heard interesting things about. Not good or bad, but interesting. JD Robb. Hi, this is Nora Roberts writing mysteries. More romance. More Sarah J. Maas. Contemporary romance, Southern Man, Greg Isles, James Patterson, there you go. Nonfiction, sequel to mystery, Satan's Fair, another romance, dark romance, Ruthless Vows, which is the sequel to it's a YA duology, which is book 1 is Divine Rivals. Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows is a duology. It's a YA duology, and apparently it's really, really good. That one I might actually look for on the library. More Lee Bardugo, more Sarah J. Maas, One Dark Window, which is book 2 in another duology, which is a retelling of a fairy tale, kind of romance fairy tale. More T.J. Klune, Somewhere Beyond the Sea, which I believe is supposed to be the sequel to House at the End of the House on the Cerulean Sea. Yes, so this is the sequel to House on the Cerulean Sea. And I am here for it. I can't wait to read this. This I'm going to look forward to. More contemporary romance. Jujutsu Kaisen, which is not a surprise. Oh, look, and more T.J. Klune. And again, this is the Green Creek series is T.J. Klune's romance-heavy, erotica-heavy series. So the fact that the ones that Heart Song and Brother Song are the ones that are making the top 100 list tell you what people read and what people buy. I just think that it needs to be well written. That's my answer. Yep. And I think it is really hella disappointing for people, for new authors who want to break into that top 100. Now, this is the top 100 of Barnes & Noble. And that's why I make a point of being like, hi, here's an author you've probably never heard of. I think their books are really great. Hi, here's an author you should have heard of, but you may not have heard of this particular book. Go read it. It's really great. Hi. This is a really, really great fantasy series. I think you should go read it. Another great author. And that's why I do this on Saturday nights. Hang out with you all, chat about books, encourage people to read. And again, read what you want. And if what you want to read is the popular book on the various social media platforms, that's great. Maybe take a chance on something else as well. I am not in any way, shape, or form bashing Sarah J. Maas. Girlfriend be making money. Like printing money. Good for her. Wishing I could help more people get more books. That's what I do this for. But it is now 10 minutes to 1 on the East Coast of the United States, which is where I reside. And I am feeling like it is time for me to crash because I have some stuff to do. Not the least of which is maybe read a new book. So, no sleep, only books. Oh, look. I can't do that. I can't do that because I gave up sleep the last 2 days. So I had Thursday and Friday off. I worked Saturday, but I had Thursday and Friday off. And I may have binge watched all 30 episodes of Alchemy of Souls in those 2 days on Netflix. By the way, if you want a really good K-drama, go watch Alchemy of Souls. Feel all of your emotions, and then try to go to work after being up at 3:30 in the morning because of feeling all of your emotions. That's the thing. Hashtag not sponsored. I am glad that I am encouraging people. I'm glad, Coldrake, I am encouraging you to get out of your comfort zone and read interesting books by interesting people. And at the end of the day, I don't expect everyone to like everything I do. That's not why I do this. I just like to talk about books that I do enjoy. And at the same time, if something's not for you, that's okay. A book doesn't have to be for everybody. There are books out there that are not for me. But I like talking about books. I like to share my books. And if there's any of this encourages you to pick up a book and say, you know, let me give it a shot. And then say, oh, well, I tried it, but it's not for me. Well, good. You tried it. That's all I wanted you to do. Look, you can't judge me, Crit. No judgment. At least not for that. But, hi everyone. Thanks for hanging out tonight. I've been your friendly neighborhood Prax. This is the channel. I will be back. If you liked the vibe, you want to hang out, thanks for being here. Thanks for following. Thanks for all of those good things. This will be going up on YouTube. Hi, there's a YouTube. It's where I post all of the VODs of the previous streams I've done, including the TTR tabletop role-playing game streams that we've got. They're all nice, neat little playlists. Check it out. If you head over there, like, comment, subscribe. I also put up community posts, posts over on the community tab talking about books we're reading, posting polls when it comes to important things in various things. I also have a Ko-Fi if you want to support the channel here. And we are, all of that goes back into production, goes for paying for these nice fancy overlays, which again, thank you to Zero Artificer, Industries over on Twitch. Did all the fancy overlays for me. Thank you very much. And to answer Coldrake's question, tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, episode 2 of Mass Effect: The Gathering Dark, a Mass Effect TTRPG stream that we're running using a modified D&D 5th edition. And last week, the first episode was a lot of fun. Mandy may have broken the universe in the first 2 hours of episode 1. We'll find out. There are things made. If you want to check out, you missed the first episode, it's up on YouTube. You can go check that out. It's a lot of fun. I get the joy of being a player in that game and not running it. Pope is running it. But we come back tomorrow for episode 2. We have a ship. We've got everybody on the ship. And now we have some jobs we need to do with the ship. I'm sure nothing will go wrong on a ship with a Hanar pilot, a Drell medic, a token human, your Krogan fighter, and your Solarian engineer. Nothing's gonna go wrong. At all. Kurt's like, oddly, I'm less concerned with the token human and the Drell. You're not wrong. Look. I'm sure that PB and I will do wonderful things. Oh yeah, and a power suit Elcor. But yep, last week was episode 1. This week it will be episode 2. Come hang out, enjoy the fun, enjoy the vibe. You can also find me on Monday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. I'll remember that. On Wandering DM as we play Montreal by Night, Vampire the Masquerade, Montreal by Night. It's complicated, but the answer is hashtag not the Ravnos' fault. Also, we may be underground, under the city of Montreal, trying to break our way into the Sabbat Cathedral. I'm sure nothing's going to go wrong with that either. But we'll be back here on Saturday. Hang out, chat, vibe. It's always a good time. And we may be doing something Wednesday night. Keep your eyes on the socials. If you can follow me on Twitter at DeirdreJohnson on Twitter, or Prax the Bard over on Instagram, Hive, Blue Sky. I always post where I'm going to be live, so follow me to see what wonderful things I get to do. I don't know is there anybody still up? No one is still up, so we are not going to raid tonight. But we will go ahead and just send it to the end. Thank you for being here, everyone, and I will catch you next time.